You're good to go.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting for the Tipp City Board of Education, October 26, 2020. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready for attendance if you are, Dave.
President Dunaway,
Here.
Vice President Dahl,
Here.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Present.
Mr. Patry, here, Mrs. Zakor.
Here.
All present accounted for this evening, Madam President. We have a quorum tonight.
Great. So we'll move on to item C, which is the approval of the agenda.
I'd like to suggest two changes to tonight's agenda. There is a document in front of all of you. One, I'd like to have the approval of the business operations coordinator position. I'd like to move that from new business, consent agenda items, classified staff, to make it a new item under just new business, coordinator staff.
Okay.
This is a supervisory position, not a classified staff position, and does not belong with classified staff.
Good catch.
I will provide the motion for it's there in front of you, but we'll get the wording out when we get to that section under new business.
Okay.
And then I suggested another item of the administration became aware today of a resignation. So we'd like to add a new item under new business, resignation, and that will be for an assistant high school swimming coach. So I'll add the motion into board docs when we get down to new business. Is everybody okay with these changes?
I would move to add another item to the agenda, which is use of attorneys. Under, I guess, at this point, old business.
Let us know when you have all that typed in, Dave. Take your time.
I have it in there now.
Anybody else? I think we're good, Dave.
Okay. That's interesting. It's not letting me pull up. We need a first and a second to approve this.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll move. I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Mrs. Dahl and Mrs. Heatherly.
Let's see if I can do this again. I'm going to have to keep notes on this. It's not letting me select who's doing this.
On the old business?
It's not letting me select the board members on who first and seconded or call the vote. It's interesting.
Maybe because we don't have to on this section. Would that be correct?
No, I've got it down as an action item.
Twice.
So I'll just make a note of it. So 1, 2. That was Dahl and Heatherly. All right. Are ready to vote? Dahl?
Yes.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item D, team building, Dare to Lead. And we're going to turn this over to Mrs. Dahl.
Okay, so I'm doing this really neat work in Springfield about building teams and doing the pre-work to have teams come together. And one of the tools that we're using is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. I meant to bring my book. I forgot that one. In a very abbreviated setting, because normally we spend an hour having conversations and there's work in between. But I just thought, let's just first talk about some of the vocabulary to start a conversation about leadership. So we're going to watch a short video about it's not the critic that counts, and it's really excellent. And then we're going to talk about what we need as a group to do the work, and the work being leadership of our school district. So Mr. Stevens, if you can start that.
Get our volume going.
So that's from a speech by Teddy Roosevelt about the man in the arena and courageous leadership. So what does it take to step out and put yourself out there and put your whole heart out there, knowing that everybody in this room has a big job. We all come with the best intentions. We all think we're representing the best of ourselves when we come in here to make decisions, to make choices, to bring our ideas. And it's kind of like assuming the best of each other. And one of the things that they said is it's not the critic who counts. So although criticizing and critical thinking are super important to our job, we know it. How can we build each other up? How can we create a safe space for each other to become the best leader that we possibly can? Because it's our school, it's our students, it's our community that's going to benefit out of having a good room full of leaders that are here to do the work together. It doesn't necessarily mean we're all going to always be on the same page, but how can we support each other and move forward? So one of the things that, again, Brene does a lot of talking about is what does it take to show up and do the work? So what do I need from you? And what do you need from me to show up and do the work? And I'll just give you an example of one I thought was really great. So even though we, during our board meetings, are recorded, so everybody knows who says what, generally, if you're going to have a safe space to do team leading and team building and leadership activities, you want what is learned to leave the room and not who said it to leave the room. So for example, like Teresa comes in and she says, I had this idea, I want to make soccer a year-round sport. So I wouldn't then leave and go, Teresa wants to make soccer a year-round sport. I would say, we had this idea about turning soccer into a longer season. What do you guys think? Because we want the learning to leave and not the name of a person to leave. So that would be one thing that would make me feel safe to just explore ideas and to put myself out there and to be vulnerable and to be honest. Because honest leadership really moves all teams forward. So I think that's one that's really helpful, is to feel safe sharing an idea and not feel like you're going to have your name attached to it or your name targeted by it. So I put Post-it notes at everybody's desk. So if you just want to think of anything that really would be helpful for you to have a safe environment to be the kind of leader that you envision yourself one day becoming, we can all just take ideas and we'll throw them up here really quick, and then we're going to talk about the next piece that goes along with what you need to be safe and have a good environment to be a leader, and then our next step after that. So I'll give you like a minute because I don't want this to take too long, or 2 minutes.
A minute.
Can you say the instruction again? What do you want from us, friend?
Yeah, like what does it take for you to feel safe, bringing your ideas, bringing your thoughts, bringing your criticisms? Like what kind of environment does that need to look and feel like for you to show up and be the best leader that you can?
You want me to say them out loud or write them down?
I'll collect them, yeah, because we don't want it to be attached to a name. I'll collect them and post them all up there. Or if you want to add your name to them, that's fine too.
the whole pad down?
You can keep
Are
it.
we gonna keep it?
I just need the one that. Thank you. Can I take this one? Okay. Oh, nice, thank you.
Overachiever down there, huh?
Yeah.
Put me on a timeline. Real fast.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
You don't have
Okay, so there's just really, really good stuff, and I'll just read them all out loud. Abiding by our policies and Ohio law, less hostility, more trust and grace, and less judgment, no social media. Warriors, speak without being interrupted, to feel safe, not feeling a scorecard is being kept on correcting by members, instead encouragement to engage, acceptance of all ideas, trust, support, sincerity, supportive ideas, focus on topics and issues, not focus on individuals or personalities, trust and honesty of all members, respect all and value the members, and trusting our community, inclusion and transparency on status of items before the board. So I think just taking a really quick snapshot, what we're all saying is that we want trust and honesty and almost like the exception of what you're doing, you did with good intentions. And of course, above all, I think we always have to say that we're going to be abiding by policies in the law. And so I think if we're looking at this, we all kind of are on the same page about what we need from each other. So knowing that we're all asking, you know, almost for the same thing, trust and honesty, support and respect. Now this is the next activity that's kind of hard to do. And I've done it because often, you know, you don't want to be the one that has the finger pointed at you, is what gets in the way. Now it's what gets in the way, not who gets in the way. So you're not going to say a name of somebody that's getting in your way, but what is stopping us from providing that supportive, respectful, trustworthy environment where we can all come and show up and be the leaders that we all envisioned ourselves being before we got into this room? Because none of us came here with envisioning less than the best leader we could be. So this is one of those things where you have to really think about what is getting in my personal way of being the leader. And for me personally, a lot of it is I don't want to be misunderstood. You know, so I really try to pick the right words, which really kind of hold you back when you're trying to speak. So my fear is the fear of being misunderstood. That's what gets in my way. But you guys, of course, you know, I'll give you a couple minutes to write down what gets in your way. You ready? Can I take that? Before I read these, I just want to commend you guys for being super honest. And I think there's a lot of vulnerability up here. That I think is a step towards us becoming the board and the team that we need to be. So I really thank all of you for showing up for this work. Some of the things that I'm reading are misconceptions about a process or a policy, harsh critics, waiting for the gotcha moment, persistent violations of our policies in Ohio law, including use of office for items which relate to personal and family agendas, time and lack of acceptance of ideas, history of personal attacks of me and my family, accusation of acts and motives that aren't true, assumptions, not being heard or valued, negativities, rumors, conflicting visions. It gets in the way, fear gets in the way about being misrepresented. So this is a lot of honesty, guys. And this is the first step towards moving in the right direction. So there's a lot of fear going on in here of what happens after here. And we are the only people that can provide a safe space for each other to become the leaders that we know we can be, and that I think we all feel called to be. So I really, really want to thank you for this. Our next step, I'm almost out of time. We're going to watch a container building about what we do with this work to start building the container where this kind of leadership can happen and take place. That's it. So thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope, every meeting we can do a little 10-minute activity that brings us closer together and on track to building a really great team.
Thank you, Corinne.
Thanks, Corinne.
Thanks so much. Mr. Stefanik, Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Dunaway. Going to pull up a little PowerPoint here, and once we finish with the PowerPoint, we can load it onto the board agenda for other folks to see. Just doing a quick update of the first quarter and some of the things that we've dealt with. It can play right off of some of the information that was just presented in that opening activity. A lot of compliments go out to a lot of people. When we started this school year, we had no idea what we were going to be dealing with or how often we were going to be dealing with some of the things that were presented to us. And people have really stepped up across the board without leaving out any classification. Everybody's jobs have changed. And they stepped up to meet the challenge to the point where a lot of people believed that in the beginning of the school year, there was no way we were going to make it to the end of the first marking period and still be live and in person in the schools. And so the safety protocols we put in place have hung in there. We've had a couple of weeks where it got a little bit bumpy with some positive cases and some fairly large quarantine lists, but we're still moving forward and trying to keep that live instruction model going for the Tipp City schools. So you see some bullet points up here. I'm not going to insult anybody by reading them, but working with the health department and putting in safety protocols in the schools have been huge in making sure that we create the safest environment possible. The third bullet is important because sometimes when a positive case hits and some folks end up on a quarantine list, there is some frustration, and I understand that. But the virus is out there, and based on what the health department said last week, a lot of their conversations when they get into contact tracing, it's really about some of the activities that are going on outside of school, because there's not as much social distancing or as much mask wearing as happens in school. Can't guarantee that all of the transmission happens outside of school, but there's a lot of evidence from the health department that there's a lot of big group activities happening outside of school that contribute to the chances for transmission. So there is a possibility with over 2,200 students in person every day that at times somebody's going to end up being positive and somebody's going to end up being in a quarantine list. Have had some questions over the past week or so that some folks did not hear the message that when we brought the majority of our school district back to live instruction, we did not have the square footage to be able to maintain 6-foot distancing in every classroom and in every space in the schools. And again, we referred back to the American Association of Pediatrics, if that's what the 2 A's stand for. I know the P stands for pediatrics. That 2 masks and 3 to 4 feet can give you the protection of 6 feet or more without a mask. And so that's what we had. We had virtually had yardsticks out, trying to put them between chairs and making sure that we were at least 3 feet, and then tried to spread them out a further if we could. But there was no way to invite the whole district back every day, in full session. There was no way to keep 6-foot distancing throughout the school day. Experiences, we're getting all kinds of reports throughout the school district of people having positive experiences. Lots of kudos to the students. We thought in the beginning that there might be all these issues with masks and all this time taken away from instruction, trying to monitor mask wearing. And the students have really stepped up. And a lot of the student leaders are encouraging their classmates, hey, hang with this, and they're actually getting used to, the masks a little bit. I'm not saying that everybody likes them. I'm just saying that they're getting used to having them on and being able to function inside the classrooms with them on. So we're starting to see some of the positive things that happened before the virus, student accomplishments, student awards, student activities, being involved in a lot of things, and excelling in the things that they're doing, even in this age of the virus. Okay. Every time we've hit a case, either on our end of things or on the health department end of things, we try to talk through, how it went and what we can revise and make better. Again, kudos to everybody for their flexibility and being able to revise processes on the fly, so we can try to get this thing as user-friendly and as non-earth shattering as possible when folks get either the positive case or the quarantine letter at their households. We are trying to be as consistent as possible, but we do understand that differences occur, sometimes individual differences with families, but definitely our schools are different sizes, our classrooms are different sizes, and so we're trying to make operations as consistent as possible with all those differences. Perfect example was, we went as safe and as disinfectant heavy as we possibly could in the beginning of the year. And then we heard that there were some concerns about how much disinfectant we were using in the classrooms and the amount of instruction time that was being taken away. We started to work with the health department, and when the health department said that if we focus on hand sanitizing rather than the every bell disinfecting of the classroom, we could end up in the same safety zone. So we were able to minimize the amounts of spray on the chairs and the tables, but by maximizing the amount of hand sanitizer use, we were able to get to the same point. So that's one of the revisions that was made as we cruised through the first quarter. Tipp. Just a little FYI on where we stand. We're still hovering right about the 11% rate for use of PLP. We've got just about 2,200 students in person, and then we've got about 269, 270 in PLP. Those numbers have fluctuated some. When all the superintendents talked in the beginning that people have to make the choice and they get what they get for the semester, the educator in me just couldn't sit there and say, you've got 17 or 18 weeks, you signed up for this. Doesn't matter if your child's doing well or doing poorly, you're in this spot. I just couldn't, sit with that. And so we have allowed some flexibility, and up through last week, we were just about 50-50. There were some people that were anxious about the virus. They were anxious about all the safety protocols. They were anxious about wearing the mask. They were requesting to go to PLP. Folks on PLP, they didn't have their Tipp City teachers in PLP, and it was a lot more student directed than they wanted it to be. And so they were requesting, they said, okay, we're still anxious, but we'll put the masks on, and can we come back? And so then some of those folks came back. It wasn't exactly 50-50, but it was probably 55-45. It wasn't 70-30 by any means. And so we had some movement, and by being able to share licenses, we could take one student's name off a PLP license, put another student's name on there, and not incur extra costs for the district. We're starting to do some planning for semester because there are some concerns about social distancing and things. If all 270 decide to come back, then we might have some very large classes and try to keep people as spaced as we possibly can. Then the square footage issue becomes a bigger deal. Mr. Dave? Here's where we stand right now. with our COVID data for the district. This goes back to September the 8th. That's when the state put their mandate in to track. We have our totals for the year. We have 11 students in the district who have tested positive, and we've had 5 staff members who have tested positive, and those numbers impact, the live cases impact 3 out of our 5 buildings. To date, Nevin, Copping, and Broadway have had no live cases with staff or students, but they have had some quarantine cases based on family, bus riding, things of that sort. Outside of school, family members have pulled some folks into quarantine status if they were a direct contact. You see when you go over right now, we have 38 students on quarantine and 3 staff members on quarantine, but for the month and a half or the month and 3 quarters, we've had 230, is that 8 or 9? 239 students at one time or another have been on quarantine, and 13 staff members at one time or another have been on quarantine. So what we're doing with these numbers is we're monitoring points in time to determine what number triggers some per building types of decisions. And when we've checked around, there are some districts that per building have made remote decisions. So building A is going on remote learning for X number of weeks to try to make sure that if there was any transmission going on there, that's gone, or there are this many students out of in-person learning, and so that's a significant enough percent that will go totally remote for the building for X number of weeks and then bring them back. But another district that I was checking with on another item, their actual mode of operation right now for their entire district is an AM/PM model. And so they have AM classes and PM classes, and that allows them to split their student population in half. And then they're allowed to have 6-foot distancing because every class, for the most part, is at 50% capacity. So if you bring all the classes down to 10 or 11 students, in the classroom, even our square footage will allow for 6-foot distancing, in most classrooms. So that's an option, and I asked the board to consider that as we get around to that, if we get around to that decision, because in the beginning, when we did our restart plan, there was some concern about the hybrid model, and we were just talking about in-person or remote. And at the elementary level and the secondary level, if we would try to go hybrid all at the same time, we wouldn't be able to fit it inside of our school day because of the added bus routes and things of that sort. But that A/B model might work just at the secondary level, specifically at the high school. The assumption, again, older students might not create as big of a change in family schedules and possibly work schedules if the students leave school at lunchtime rather than at 2:30 or 2:45. And so they would have a half day of classes, and then they would have some online activities to do when they left classes, if that was an option that we could look at. So again, that idea came from another district. They're doing it for the entire district, but it's a district I found has no buses, and so they're able to just either have the students walk home, or they have a big parent line outside of all their buildings at dismissal time. So these numbers here, again, any decisions for remote, most likely, knock on wood, won't be triggered necessarily by confirmed positive cases, but they might be triggered by a close contact quarantine, type of number, if that number gets too big. Side note, last week, the governor made mention, of a possibility of at least endorsing, if not putting an idea out there, that if people for schools, if people put extra medical screening places in place, that maybe the close contact folks wouldn't necessarily have to be quarantined. And I checked with our health department, and they said that they're monitoring the Ohio Department of Health to see if that suggestion moves forward. And I told them that if they're looking for pilot districts, to give that a try, to keep the quarantine list down. And as long as the students are healthy, they can remain in school. That I would like our health department to put Tipp City at the top of that list. And the health director said he'll put a capital T on Tipp City and keep that suggestion in mind. Again, that would be temperature taking for students that are on the close contact list on a daily basis, monitoring symptoms a little more closely, and trying to keep the students in school rather than putting them on a quarantine list. So we would be open if the health department folks believe that's a safe way to move forward.
Has there been any thought of quarantining in school? Like moving the people who are exposed to a different space?
I haven't heard that idea mentioned. I think it's potentially something that could be discussed, but what you'd have to do there is you'd have to make sure that it was a space that could handle the 6 foot and beyond distancing, because even though the folks are on a quarantine list, there's no telling who actually has the virus or if any of them have the virus. And so by putting them in close contact there, they were all in close contact with somebody, putting them all in one place might create an issue. I don't know. That would have to be something that could be researched.
It'd be hard to coordinate that.
Yep. But you need a big space because right now, again, if we've got 38 folks in one place, you'd have to have a space where 38 students could be together, all 6 foot apart or more, and able to, get their work accomplished. But again, that's also at the secondary level, so it could be by bell, and then that number would come down.
Mr. Stefani,
Yes.
on the 11 total for our population of in-person 2,195 students, do you know how that compares to other districts for that size population? I mean, I'm getting like it's a 0.5%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what, I mean, I don't know is that good? Is that normal? Is that high?
Well, I didn't check statewide, but I checked inside the county, and we're about even with a district that's a little bit bigger than us. We're there, but at the same time, there are districts that are about half our size that only have like 1 or 2 cases, for the year. So I don't know. I don't know how you judge that. They're half as big as us, but they have 1/5 of the cases. So I don't know if those percentages go together. But one of the districts that's similar in size to us, their total number is very similar to ours. And we were cruising along, one here, one there, one here until last week. And last week we seemed to have a lot of notifications, and it was almost a staff member and a student, per day, or one or the other per day. It seemed to be too many notifications for my comfort level, inside of a couple of days span. But as you look in those weeks, we had just a couple of students, and a couple of staff, two each. But when you had 4 out of the 5 days, one or the other, it just seemed like a lot of cases coming at us all at once.
That's it.
That's the last one. Okay. So we're looking at any option we can. We seem to have still our biggest bump in the road is that there's a perception out there that information isn't flowing quickly enough, from the school district out to the community. And part of that is because we wait for our trigger from the health department. And families might get a call from their family doctor on Wednesday afternoon. So then they get a call and they say, hey, we just got your test back and this happens. If the family gets in contact with us on that afternoon with the actual documentation of the positive test, we can get that to the health department and we can start our process. If we don't get that information until the next morning, then we have to wait on the system to report it to the health department. Then when the health department gets a confirmed case on the statewide system, then they call us and then our processes start. So at that point, we're probably 12 to 15 hours behind when the family may have heard about it. Family members, they're going to start notifying their close family members, their close friends who may have been close to the child or the adult. And then so word's out there, but we don't have the confirmed documentation yet that the case is a positive one. And so we have to sit and wait. And then once we hear, we have a process. Board of Education, well, the school hears first, then the Board of Education hears next. Then we send it out to the entire staff of the district, and then we are mandated to send out class letters, and then we send out building letters. And so those are the mandates by state law. And so we have to go through, and for a secondary student, we have to go through their entire schedule. We have to get the emails of all the families of anybody in that entire schedule, and then we have to send out a mass email with the suggested letter from the State Department of Health to move that forward. So it's a pretty involved process. Our hub of information flow is in Mr. Veerhoff's office, and I'm amazed that his computer hasn't exploded yet with the information coming and going from different points. But he's established a pretty good communication link with the health department, and that information comes and goes pretty well. As we talked about in our team discussion, yeah, there are some bumps every once in a while, and at times some frustration, in the phone calls and the communications. But in the end, we know that the health department's there for us, and they appreciate the information that we're sending in their direction.
I'm glad you explained that process to see how layered it is to get the end result that you want. And maybe the public understanding that a little better, well, because that, I don't think of these things on my own. So I appreciate that explanation. And maybe with the public understanding that too, you tend to be more forgiving of, less judgmental, or feeling that maybe you weren't informed soon enough. Or so thank you, Mr. Verhoff, for handling all that.
To piggyback off of what you're talking about within the county, we have the third highest in the county. Piqua and Troy have more than us. Our neighbors to the south, Vandalia, Butler, have 11. There's actually a dashboard on the Ohio Department of Health that shows all of this information, and you can get to it through Miami County Public Health.
And just so the board knows, some parents have called with some follow-up information after their child has appeared on a quarantine list. No, we do not go off of just one parent's information and start changing decisions about quarantine lists. But after we get that parent in contact with the health department, and then we go back and verify what the parent has told us. Some students, based on they were absent that afternoon from school because they were at a dentist appointment or something like that. We look through that information, and then just off of their seating chart, they would not be on a quarantine list. And so some revisions have been made to the quarantine list after some verification of new information. But just because somebody calls up and says, I don't think my kid should be on a quarantine list, we don't revise, off of that. There has to be verifiable information and okay from the health department to revise the quarantine list before we do that. Okay, next item, hopefully will be faster. I'm going to read an item right off of the state's website. This is about high school diploma seals. And the board had a presentation, and I don't know, was it this board, Mr. Veerhoff, or was it previous?
It was
Last spring. Okay, so you had a presentation on the seals. And so it says on the state's website, in addition to fulfilling curriculum requirements and meeting the competency requirements, students also must show they're prepared for their next steps after high school. State law created 12 diploma seals for students to demonstrate academic, technical, and professional readiness for careers, college, the military, or self-sustaining professions. Each seal allows students to demonstrate knowledge and skills essential for future success in their chosen post-high school paths. Students will demonstrate readiness by earning at least 2 diploma seals, one of which must be state-defined. Seals help students develop an array of critical skills that are valuable to them as they transition to the next steps after high school. Schools should consider encouraging students to pursue seals that meet their individual interests and skills. The state has 9 of those 12 seals. And again, as it says there, students have to achieve one of those state mandated seals. The state gives local school districts the options of having 3 local seals. And our recommendation is that the Tipp City schools have those 3 local seals. Mr. Verhoff, in my zest to print this off, the local seals are
Fine arts, community
service.
involvement,
Yes.
and then the third one. Community service, fine arts, and student engagement.
Student engagement. So those are the 3. You don't have to have 3 at the local level, but I think if we can have as much variety and opportunity for our students that it gives them a chance to lock in with what truly drives them. And again, what I like to say, what gets them out of bed in the morning, they say like, I really want to go to school for this reason. And if they can find the seals to match up with that, then the students will have a higher achievement level in getting those seals.
So does the local district have flexibility in what they define as a seal
Yes,
for their local seals?
yes, you have to set up the definitions of each of the seals.
What was the second one, Dave? Fine arts? and what was the
Community service.
Community service and student
second?
engagement.
Student engagement. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So the local board can be creative then. It doesn't fall within a framework dictated by the state.
they've got general statements
Mhm.
there, but yes, it says the local board defines what the local seals are all about.
Well, one seal that I think is just amazing to be encouraged, and a lot of our students already do that, is having a job. And, you know, it just teaches so much. And there's kids sometimes that are forced to do that just to make ends meet for their family. There's other students doing it to buy their extras or to help, you know, the agreement with the parents to pay for the car insurance. But for whatever reason, job training at the secondary level, it's amazing what they learn. You know, it's no longer the principal and the teacher telling them, it's a employer telling them, it's company policies, it's working now, someone filling your shift when you can't be there. It's just on the job training that I feel is invaluable. And I don't know why we're not recognizing that for the students who do it so successfully.
So are those 3 pretty much already decided, the fine arts, community service, and student engagement?
Those are the 3 categories that the
Okay,
state
gotcha.
gives
So
you, and then you define underneath it. And so possibly,
Student
I'm
engagement.
thinking student engagement,
yeah,
if there was some criteria in there that went towards the job piece, then that would be something that they could use to attain that seal.
so what does this,
Go
ahead.
Sorry,
no.
the Ohio Means Job Readiness Seal is one of the Ohio state seals that could also fall into that category. Something that we're working on, and it'll be part of our agenda tomorrow with Business Advisory Committee, is pre-apprenticeship programs at the high school. And we're really trying to move forward and finding some business partners that would be willing to do that in the area of manufacturing, healthcare. We're looking at electricians and also information technology. So that would fit right in line with that Ohio Means Job Readiness Seal.
But just to be clear, and I see what you're saying, that's more focused into an area, which is fantastic, because some students do realize their high school dream and go on and complete it, but others are still finding their way. I was one of those students. And what I'm saying is that even if they're working at McDonald's or Menards or anywhere else, you know, the wealth of lessons, they get a paycheck, a debit card, they look at their bank account, they,
You can't be absent. You have to show up. Yeah.
it's,
That Ohio means job readiness seal still applies for that.
thank you.
It does,
I
yes,
just
even for those part-time
feel-
jobs
yeah.
while they're working in school, they have a point of contact at that place of employment
Okay.
that basically is like their mentor that completes that application
Excellent.
for that seal.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's wonderful. And maybe for those kids who don't really want to have a job, we can
Help them get a job.
help
Yeah.
them get a job for the
Maybe
sale.
consider this.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's going to be a part of our college and career readiness class that they would earn, or the career mentorship class, I'm sorry, where they would earn the Ohio Means Job Readiness seal.
That's great.
And this starts with the freshman class this year.
Now, this is graduating classes of 21 and 22.
Oh,
21 and 22, okay.
Couple months.
Wow.
So, and one other piece of the state law, it says that, remember I said we would recommend all three areas being here in Tipp. State law says that each district has to have at least one of the locally developed seals. Nobody has to earn the local ones, but it's an option. You have to earn at least one state one. So we will continue to develop those. If it be the board's pleasure, if there is a student achievement representative from the board, and that's not one of the committees up on my board, there's so many up on the board, I couldn't remember all, but if there's something close to that, those folks could possibly participate in the drafting, but we will bring the seal definitions to the board to get them formalized.
and since the class of
21 and
21 is
22.
this coming up in the spring, and next year,
Freshmen, sophomores.
what are you, how are they being informed about this requirement, Mr. Darrell?
So this would occur during their meetings with their school counselors, where they would talk about on track, off track for graduation, what are your plans after graduation. So the seals are all part of those success plans that they work with their counselors on and track.
So they should be in the know.
They should be in the know, yes.
Okay.
Well, just to be clear, Mr. Beerhoff, a lot of these kids don't meet with their counselors. I mean, there could be kids that are sophomores and juniors and they're like, I've never had an issue, I've never had to go there. So I don't want to just put this on the counselors because it's easy for things to get missed or slipped or just not, students aren't aware. So I'm assuming this would be on the guidance page or like parents like to be informed, right? Because a lot of times kids don't listen to it's hard to hear the announcements or they just are distracted with many other things. So I think a lot of the parents really like those emails that we get, the morning announcements. That might be a great place for us to put it. I just don't want to put this all in the guidance counselors. It's easy. This is important and I don't want it to get missed.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Wow, you guys are
But the
busy.
majority of students aren't going to get their second seal based on these three topics, these three seals. They get them from two of the 9.
The vast majority of our students will earn more than 2 seals.
Right.
A lot of the 9 seals, or many of the 9 seals that the state has developed involve testing or College Credit Plus or AP classes. The vast majority of our students will meet their seals, one of those 9 seals very easily. They'll probably meet 2 of them very easily. And then still more will meet one of these local seals. The local seals are designed for those that maybe struggle with testing. And so these are other opportunities for them to earn those seals.
More info to come on the seals. Last piece is about substitute teacher update. We've been having some conversation with Ms. Joseph, who handles our substitute teachers in our buildings. And we've been talking with some other districts who have struggled to get substitutes at times. We're averaging about 2 to 3 sub positions per day that go unfilled throughout the district. And some of the districts around us have put in place what they call a permanent sub. And so the permanent sub idea is that there is a sub that shows up in each building every day. And with our gaps in substitute teachers on a daily basis, that's one less sub that you have to find, because that person's going to show up Monday through Friday and be there and pick up whatever opening occurs. If there's not an opening in that building and there's a double opening in another building, the person can go from school A to school B and help out with that class opening. If for some reason we don't have 5 absences in a given day, these permanent subs then can take on some of the roles that we were talking about, during the TCEA report a month ago, that some extra things need to be taken care of during the school days because there's school volunteers aren't coming in. There's not as many teacher aides possibly as there have been in the past to help out with some of the tasks that are on a daily basis. And so these permanent subs then could help out with those daily tasks, if we didn't have a need for subs. Right now, there is a need for subs. And so if we could get 5 showing up, 1 per building every day, that would be a help. In the other districts, we're finding that they put an incentive on these people to make sure that they are there all 5 days. So the typical $100 a day for a sub has been raised. We've heard anything from $150 a day to $200 a day to make sure that they show up on a daily basis and that the district can rely on them. And we've also found through a quick poll of our subs, since some other districts do pay more than $100 a day anyways, our folks don't want to commit to 5 straight days here at $100 a day because they might be able to get a few extra bucks if they mix and match districts on a daily basis. So we'd like the board to consider, and we can finalize it at the November meeting if you need time to think about it. We'd like the board to consider for these permanent subs the daily rate going up a little bit. Dave and I have been talking about it. We think right now the ceiling as a starting point might be $150 a day. Just as a point of reference, the step 0 for the teachers on the teachers' salary schedule is about $208 a day. So if we came down, off of the first line of the teacher salary scale a touch, then that would be still in the substitute teacher realm of pay rather than the fully certified hired teacher at the step 0 level.
Do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda to take care of that tonight? I hate to have us wait till the end of November to take care of this, if this is a need you're experiencing now.
So to Dave's, up to the board, or?
The board could do that, but we wanted you to think about it a little bit. I mean, $50 more, I mean, there is a price tag to that. It's an additional $1,500 a week. If you had 5 positions filled 5 days out of the week in 5 buildings, it would add to it. So,
Would you like to get us those numbers?
that was it right there. $1,500 a week extra. It's $1,000 a week extra if it's $135 instead of $100. So, the need is there, and
But what does that do to the overall budget, Dave? Can it be handled, or?
it could be handled. Correct. I just.
Of course it comes with a cost. But
Well,
what does that mean in terms of?
my fear is
$6,000 a month.
My fear is creating something that would need to go away. I don't want this to be something that sticks around permanently. This is definitely a need that we have right now. I'm sure that down the road, the sub rate is something we're going to have to look at anyway.
So is this like, I understand that you want to put a sub in every building permanently, right? Like 5 days a week. So is this like a position that you would interview for, like the permanent sub at Broadway? Or
Well,
like, and does it come, or does our contract say like after you've worked so many days in
it's
the
in the
position?
same position, it goes up to $110.
And do you get benefits?
No.
Oh,
Oh, I apologize. No, if you have been working in the same position for 60 days total for the same person, so if somebody is out for 60 days,
Right, long-term.
you then take over as a long-term sub at step 0 with benefits.
So
But that's taking over for the same position.
right. So if we create this position called a permanent sub, and every day you're in the same position,
No.
even though you're not there for a teacher, I just want to be fair to somebody who's going to commit to us. I don't mind committing back.
No.
So if you could just look at that, like what would it cost us to, maybe that might be an extra little bonus that somebody's willing to do it for 125 if they got benefits. You know, I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas.
They'd be working for different people all the time. I mean, I don't think any of the
But
other
they'd be
local
working for
schools,
Tipp though, right?
but you have to be in the same position for, it's the same
The same
teacher in the same
assignment is
class.
what he's
Same
saying.
assignment, yes.
Right.
The assignment varies.
I
from day to day.
understand that assignment, but if we're creating an assignment called permanent floating sub, and you're staying in that assignment, even though you're in different rooms, maybe every day, every other day. I'm just saying, maybe we'll attract more highly qualified people with that kind of an extra bonus, you know, that maybe you do get some benefits with that. I don't know. I'm just saying maybe it's something we could think about.
Well, how does healthcare work for long-term subs? I mean,
They don't get healthcare
because the
until
position's called sub.
they reached 60 days permanent. That's 3 months in the same position for the same person.
So the term permanent implies some type of term contract. So how long are we going to be hiring them for the year? What does that mean exactly, I guess?
Mark, I'm going to defer to you on that.
Well,
That's on COVID.
yeah.
That's on
Well,
COVID.
I was gonna say, in the beginning of the year, we were looking at semester-based decisions, and trying to see what was gonna happen with the virus as we progress through this year. Now that we're halfway to semester, if we made another semester decision, that would take us from now till basically spring break, for these types of positions. And then see if something moves the needle one way or the other between now and then to determine if the need was still there or possibly a greater need would exist.
And I see what Corinne's point is, by putting something like that on the Dayton Consortium, you might, like you said, get some people who are, I really don't want to sub this year, although I'm an awesome sub and I love subbing, it's just not really something I'm interested in, but that might be something that puts them, piques their interest to the point where they're, you know what, I think I'm going to do it, because
Right.
it's worth it
This little
now.
extra benefit, it's not a
right.
lot, but it's worth it
So-
to me.
If you guys want to kind of
We're talking about subs that we've already approved, and that's who we're talking about?
Yes.
So we wouldn't be putting it.
Well, this is a new, we're doing this new though, so we haven't done this before and we're bumping up the pay. So Corinne's point is, we might be able to get, some of those people that, even for us, we've had some of our great substitutes who aren't subbing for us this year. So maybe some of our own would,
Come back.
I don't know.
Yeah, potentially the group was the subs we already had and to
Internal.
buildings go like, oh, that's our favorite one, that's
Yeah,
the first one we always call. That
Absolutely.
way that person beat that person. But right now, for the same rate as they would get, with the ability to say, yeah, I don't feel like it today, or I'm busy today, and then you miss Wednesday, that, they said that for the same amount as when they would get the option to sub that day or not sub that day, it might not be worth changing schedules and things like that if there was a day when they couldn't come in.
Yeah, I think if you can answer a few more of those kind of questions.
Well, I would be in favor of us approving this to the end of this semester. We already can anticipate that we're going to have COVID go through this calendar year. We've already got a ballpark of the prices. You already have an approved sub list. You've already demonstrated there's a need. So I would move that we add it to the agenda and vote on it tonight.
Do you feel like you understand clearly what we'd be voting on?
I would be voting on the subs that we already have approved, because that's our process, is that we only use subs that we've already pre-approved.
But I mean, like, I'm not really sure what, you want to say for sure 150?
I'm not prepared to make a decision
Yeah.
today. I think there's a lot of questions I have unanswered. The first is, I guess, what's our next, who's the highest in this region paying subs? What's their number? What's the benchmark data for that? And how far away are they? And then what makes them more desirable than us? And then, so maybe we're not looking at 150, maybe we're looking at 125 or 130. We don't necessarily have to jump straight to 150. Let's just be a little bit better than everybody else, is my feeling. The other thing is if we're going to be putting this in any type of position for more than just the daily basis, I think that's usually done, I would want to make sure that we're not accidentally triggering any potential conflicts with our unions or anything else, or with the union, or where we may have to give them benefits, not intentionally, but let's say we're hiring for a specific term that may trigger something. I think understanding what that could be and what the costs associated with that is important for us to understand before we commit. And so I think that before I would be comfortable for voting for anything like that, I would, beyond just maybe an increase of what we pay daily, be more competitive. That I could probably do today if I understood where competition is. But beyond that, I can't do anything today. At least I would not be comfortable doing it today.
Dave, was Fairborn at 145 or 150? I'm trying to remember from last year. Was it
I
Fairborn?
don't recall which one it was, but they increased their substitute rate to 145 or 150. for
Correct.
Retired
With experience,
teachers.
yes, retired, yeah, correct, with experience, so.
We've got two districts in our county and in our, well, one of them's in our sports league, the other one's not, that are at 200 or north of 200.
Wow,
The one is at the step 0 of their teacher salary scale, which is 208 if you break it down, per day, and the other one is at just $200 flat.
Are they requiring licenses for that cost, or is
200 is a lot.
Yeah.
that
I have to say,
at that price? Are they saying like if you're licensed, you can get 200?
certified teacher.
Okay, so yeah.
Was that because of COVID, Mr. Stefanik? I have not, okay, because I've never heard of the 200, that's new information.
That's not, this is for a permanent sub.
Right,
This is not
right.
just normal
Yeah,
substitute.
I get it, that's what we're getting ready to do.
Yeah.
So I had never heard that $200 figure before.
But around here, regular sub rates, isn't somebody at least 105 or 110 for a
Right.
daily rate? And that's just typical sub rate, and we're at 100.
And I think I agree with Simon's comment about if we're gonna have sounds like we're gonna have a new position called a permanent sub,
I agree.
rather than just taking a sub and saying, hey, you want to stay permanent, we're gonna pay you this amount of money. So maybe that is gonna require like a different approach to this.
We can do, I said, this was in the information item section. Now that you're hearing some questions on more information you need, we get that information together and I have it for the next meeting and then move forward from there.
So
Thank you.
can I ask a question about the permanent sub position? If we were to move forward with this, and let's say by Christmas break, or Thanksgiving break, we find that the schools are closed, ordered to be closed. Does that person still, are they on a contract? How does it work with they?
No, it's just a sub.
So then
For when
there would be
schools are
no
open.
obligation to pay forward for days that were, okay.
Yeah, if we would close and go to remote learning, then the teacher of record would then take over those classes and the permanent subs would not be needed at the buildings.
So it's probably important to let people know that too. Well, thank you.
Okay.
So is this going to be for November? How are we going
Yes,
to bring this to close?
Yeah, November is a little bit closer, board meeting because of the holiday break. And so I think we're in the teens of November. And so it's not 4 weeks, it might be 3.
It's the
three. Yeah.
16th is our next meeting.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks.
So maybe with little benchmark updates in the Friday board update. And then that way people have, we get the Friday board update. Oh, I thought of a question, circle back to you.
Yep.
That way when we get to November, our ducks are in a row
Right.
and we're prepared to
More questions are
have
answered.
yeah, exactly.
Very good. Okay. Do I start doing the agenda? now?
Yeah, I guess that's, yeah.
Okay. There are no other questions over at the citizens comments section. This is where citizens may address the board.
So I think we have, the paper is right out there, Mr. Stefanik. I think we have one when I look out. Is there more than one?
Well, this looks like it's Mr. Watson.
Spot right there on the card.
Yeah, don't slip, Don. Stand beside it or something.
This will be my podium. Okay, question, Teresa. Since you allotted 30 minutes for comments, does that mean I get 30 minutes?
No, 5 minutes per person, 30 minutes total. And we break it up into 15-minute sections. We do 15 minutes at the beginning and we do 15 minutes at the end. Do you think that you need the full 10 minutes? Do you need 10 minutes?
No, I'm signed up to speak the second time too.
Okay.
But if you're allotting 15 minutes, then I may run over 5, so.
So here's my question to you. We can amend this for you. If you plan on staying the entire meeting, you can, do your citizens' comments now and do them at the end. If you planned on leaving after your comments, we can make a motion to give you the full 10 minutes now. So do you have a preference?
Yeah, I would rather, I thought it had to be 2 different subjects.
Well, yeah, I don't know what your comments are, obviously, so.
Yeah. He's got one this evening. The first one in the beginning of the meeting was to be accountability. The second closing session was going to say whose child belongs here.
Do I have any input from the board on how we want to handle this for Mr. Watson tonight?
I think since he's the only public comment, if he wants to talk for 10 minutes and cover both issues, I'm okay with that.
Policy states you can speak twice.
Right.
If the other spots are taken, which obviously they're not tonight, as long as they're on different subjects.
Does anybody else, Joellen or Simon, have any input on
Do we
Mr.
have any
Watson?
that were mailed in?
Well, we didn't do mail-in tonight. We're doing in person starting tonight. Dave, do we have any?
No, I didn't
okay.
receive anything.
Simon, do you have any preference on Mr. Watson and how we should handle the citizen comments?
I believe you have the discretion to extend the amount of time that he may present as a presiding officer under a policy, so I will leave it up to you.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I just wanted to do, what was fair to the entire board. So Don, do you think your 2 comments are gonna, 30 minutes is, a bit much. Do you think, go ahead, Don.
He would get 10 minutes, 5
Right.
minutes. We're just
But we
moving
can't-
into the middle.
But
right?
boards can extend the comment time past the 10 minutes. And Simon is correct in commenting on that. So go ahead, Don. We'll see what happens. We'll start with the 5 minutes. And if you go a minute over, we're not gonna have a panic attack. Is that
All right.
fair?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry.
I am going back, I guess I didn't know Corinne was going to speak on what she was speaking, but I guess I can piggyback on that.
Of course.
I didn't notice my purpose is the purpose that we all need to go back to, and that's biblical purpose. I noticed the lady who spoke did not speak any about that. She talked about faith. You can have all kinds of faith, but the Holy Bible is the answer to everybody on earth. So I'm going to share some scripture, which I have over the COVID. I've had a great 7 months. The first one, as David wrote in the Psalms 46:10, he said, "Be still and know I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted on the earth." And then Solomon in Proverbs 6:12 says it's a subject paragraph is the wicked person. A worthless person and a wicked person walks with perverse mouth.
This person sows discord, a false witness who speaks, and one who sows discord among people. Those are verses 12 through 19. So without a computer and without any iPhone, without an iPad and that stuff, I rely on the paper. That's my source of information, my source of going back to what is right and what is wrong is biblical, what I know. Don't take me wrong. I'm learning a lot. And if you want to know how I do that, started the Alumni Association in 1990. I've got to know a lot of sharp people, but one that I just knew a little bit passed away this last year. And that was Joe Patton, identical twin of the class of 1948. And he was a brain. And fortunately, I stopped by, they had the estate sale of his, and his niece gave me his Bible. First Bible I've had that has red print in it, which shows you that when Jesus was speaking. So I've learned a lot just by reading that. And also a book I wrote, How Good is Good Enough? We think, how good do we have to be in heaven? That's not true. There'll be good people and bad people that we mentally think of in heaven, and there'll be good and bad people that don't make it there. The only way you're going to make it there is if you're a forgiven person. And I say that very strongly because that's what I believe. And I think our country is going through a tough time. I would use an example of my brother, a missionary to Israel in February, was on a flight coming home, and the guy that's sitting a seat over, they held a conversation, and my brother asked him, why are you over here in Israel? And he said, I'm over here signing contracts to make chips for all Americans to put in their wrist. So this is not something that I thought I'd ever see. It's something that's happening on the world right now. So it makes me, from my heart, want to share with everybody that there is a greater God, and you better be ready to live life ready for him. And another scripture that helps me is in Hebrews, written by Paul. It says, follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man or woman shall see the Lord. And that has helped me out in decisions and speaking to people. I know I've spoken many times about truth to the school board, this one and the previous school board, which brings on the accountability that I said I would speak about. And I had my grandkids help me out yesterday. I'm not a painter, but this illustrates the white. Pardon?
10 seconds.
The white is the taxpayers. You people have a very important position, and that's the spokes of a wheel. All these different colors out here is the rim. And if a spoke is broken, you can see this wheel is not going to work very long. So I say that with you, Corrine, we need to work together, everybody of each spoke. So am I done?
Yep. Well, then we'll move on to the next one. Did you have another?
That was that was 5 minutes is what he's trying to say.
Okay.
Is that?
This is about students belonging here. Has nothing to do with open enrollment. I believe that if you're gonna have open enrollment, you have open enrollment for the whole state of Ohio. You're not picking out particular groups that you want to come to school and groups you don't want to come to school. So you open up to this whole state of Ohio. That's what the Attorney General told me. You can do that. So when parents choose Tipp City schools, they choose to attend a school. Involved in that is campus life. Is it a good education? Is it solid academic reputation? This is what all parents should choose when they choose to live here in the school we provide. The students and their families work their way through these issues. There's often an additional unspoken question that also plays an important part in finding the right school. Will I fit in? Will I belong? Belonging is a deep need for all people. Our individual sense of belonging nourishes us both physically and emotionally. It provides a sense of identity and security. Belonging fosters a feeling of fitting in, a confirmation that you are an important member of a group. Just as a close family school environment can do the same. This is particularly important as young men and women leave their families to join a larger, more diverse group, which would be university, or self or a job, large job position. Our self-identity is strengthened as we develop a sense of belonging. We feel more secure when we know that we have others around us who share our goals and care about our progress. Yet interestingly, belonging does not mean or demand strict compliance or commitment to groupthink. We still think as individuals. So just as a family is made up of individuals who often have different gifts and opinions, belonging within a school community does not erase a person's individuality. In fact, a sense of belonging often enforces individuality. A person can belong to an orchestra without playing the same instrument as everyone else. In fact, it is the members' individuality woven together with other individuals that makes an orchestra possible. The beauty of the music comes from the differences within the orchestra. In like manner, an athlete finds his or her place on a sports team by playing a specific position. Winning comes as each team member contributes individual skills in harmony with others. Our academic programs are rigorous and highly accredited. I believe that. I've been here all my life. And the facility, well qualified, and the faculty, well qualified and gifted. We provide a learning that makes it easy for students to belong. We value each person's gifts and embrace the variety of experiences and expectations students bring to the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Got a minute left.
You have a minute, Don. Do you want to talk about your wheel again? Are you good?
The thing that I would like you to know, since you're a newcomer to the community, is when I was in school, excellence as a tradition was true. But over the last few years, excellence has diminished. And I would like in your new plan to bring up with a new quote that tells the truth. We've had faculty that I feel has stolen, and they're still in a position from the school district. We have faculty that are still in the school district, and administrator, don't get me wrong, administrator that runs a bully school and that's in our district. And I found that out by attending a Channel 2 interview with 5 mothers, and they were all saying that the school was a bully school. And that has no place in Tipp City. So I would ask you with your plan to try to come up with something that eliminates that. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn.
Bye, Dawn.
Have a good evening.
Next on the agenda is TCEA comments.
Yeah, no comments
Right.
tonight.
Heather Yunker called in this afternoon and said that something came up and she was not able to make it. And so it was at such short notice that there's no
Great.
substitute person for TCEA comments. And so next would be the president's comments.
First of all, I just wanted to say one thing. There is a difference between a work session meeting and a board meeting, meaning typically what we try to do, we're not always perfect at achieving this, but what Mr. Stefanik, Mr. Stevens, myself, and Corinne do, all 3 board members are always welcome to, email any of us. If we know something is coming up on the agenda, that's going to be an item that requires a lot of discussion, whether it's, open enrollment. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. This substitute teacher thing, we try to have a work session on that because there's only so many legal times that the 5 of us can have a conversation. So we try to kind of get that out there. And to the community watching, sometimes they may see a lot going on, and that's good because we want 5 opinions. We want 5 independent thinkers. We want 5 people coming to the work sessions with questions. When people ask questions and then we question one another, that makes us better. And it also allows us to close all of the loops and, get a lot accomplished in those meetings. So that is one thing I think sometimes people don't understand the difference between the work session and the board meeting. And prior to COVID, our work sessions were never live. And we would we only had maybe 3 a year and hardly anybody ever attended, less than an actual board meeting. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there for the public. I just had 4 things that I wanted to address from the work session, and Mrs. Dahl, feel free to chime in if you need to. Sure. First one, Joellen, you had a question regarding the monthly statement from Russell and Andrus, and I just wanted to let you know I did reach out, and we do not get charged for that monthly statement. So great question. I thought it was pretty amazing. At least in my opinion, in today's day and age, there seems to be less and less customer service. So to think that she does that for all of her clients just completely blew me away. Her professionalism, her dedication to her craft. I was, like I said, just super impressed with Russell and Andrus, and the fact that we do not get charged for that monthly statement. It's no cost to the taxpayers. The second issue, Simon, you had a concern regarding the library policy, specifically, how Mr. Stefanik, Mr. Stevens, myself, and Corinne, how we engage legal counsel, why we engage legal counsel, when we use legal counsel. So I did reach out to our legal counsel as well as OSPA, just to make sure that the 4 of us were correct in what we did and in our thinking. And the quote was, to use their quote exactly, what we did, how we did it, and when and how we presented it to the entire school board was textbook. We did everything exactly how we should have done it. And because ORC 3375.15 is specific to the Tipp City Board of Education, it was important to reach out to our legal counsel because it was specific to us. Number 3, Simon, you brought up the personal attorney use, I think different from what you're going to discuss later. I did reach out to both legal counsel and I asked very specific, very pointed questions. Have you ever engaged in any kind of legal directive from a board member or 2 board members? And the answer was absolutely not. Legal counsel was very specific that they engage two ways, always by a superintendent. The superintendent is able to call legal counsel and engage with the attorney, whatever that day-to-day operation situation would look like. The second way is when the attorney is engaged by the majority of the school board, which that would, involve an executive session. We would all discuss it as a board, and 3, 4, or 5 board members would then all agree to engage legal counsel. So again, I was very specific. I was very pointed in my questions. I wanted to make sure that it had never happened, and both attorneys said absolutely not. The last thing was Joellen, the executive session violation. So I wanted to, reach out. You could tell how upset I was. I was stressed about that because executive session and FERPA is something that I hold near and dear to my heart, just as we all do. It's policy, it's boardsmanship, it's just your internal integrity, character, and morals as a human being. And I did send that entire thread to our attorney, and there was no executive session or FERPA violation. So, I was glad to get that clarification. Had there been, I definitely would have, figured out how to proceed, to address that or handle that. So those were just the 4 concerns that I wanted to clear up from the work session meeting. Did you want to add anything, Mrs. Dahl?
Oh, I think that's good.
Okay. Alrighty. So that takes us to the treasurer's report, and I'll turn that over to you, Dave.
Exist. All right. First item in the treasurer's report, I'd like to get a motion for the approval of the monthly financial report for September 2020.
I'll make the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second by Mrs. Dunaway and Mrs. Dahl.
Again, attached is our monthly report for the financial activity for the month of September of 2020. That with the conclusion of September was the first quarter of this school year. So we're 4th of the way done. Are there any questions or concerns that I could address from the board on this information?
None for me.
We're moving along as expected. I will be presenting the 5-year forecast. The first 5-year forecast will be at our next November meeting. It'll have more information than what we had when it was presented back in May. And so look forward to that. Other than that, I have no other information.
And does anybody have any other comments? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Okay. Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Abstain.
Motion
Zakor.
carries. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Next item under treasurer's report is the fiscal year 21 appropriation amendments. I'd like to get a motion for that.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second, Dunaway and Heatherly.
The only appropriation adjustments we had this month were we received a couple student activity fund budgets. That was for the quiz team and the Model United Nations, so their budget's been added. And we did receive lots of budgets for our team accounts for our winter and spring sports. So those have been added. And there was a small increase to our general fund of $11,000 for some additional supplies and materials and repairs. So not like last month where we had a big, huge list of all of them. Any questions or concerns I could answer for the board?
Looks like there's none.
Okay. Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick,
Abstain.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And last but not least, under treasurer's report, I'd like to get a motion for approval of the ORC 570541 purchase order certification, then and nows for September 2021.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Dahl and Heatherly.
Okay, there were only 2 items on the report this month. One is just a utility bill, which doesn't really qualify as then and now, but again, this is just one where I cover my butt for the auditors. The other item was new creation counseling. That is our invoice for the services that we approved. That was just done one day after the invoice was received. So,
Oh,
yeah, so we have to officially do that as a then and now.
So how is that invoice, Mr. Stevens, in terms of, I know the total amount, I believe was 53.
They do it quarterly.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're ready for a vote. Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes,
Dunaway,
yes,
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, that is it for the treasurer's report.
I wanted to add one thing. Is the audit opening?
The audit is open.
Do you want to make that announcement to everybody?
Oh, yeah, sure. The staff auditors from the Auditor of State's office are working off-site. They're currently using all of the information that's been scanned into Strategic Solutions, so all of our checks, all of our receipts, all of our payroll information, and they're currently contacting staff around the area as needed to provide additional information. They'll come on site every now and then. It hasn't happened yet, but they'll just get some things that can't be scanned in. So it's going very smoothly so far. I haven't had anybody complain.
When do you think they'll complete the audit?
Well, the audit's going to be done in 2 stages. So right now, they're currently looking at all of our cash information. That's just all the money that came in and went out during the fiscal year. We have until November 29th, I believe, to file our GAAP financial statements. That's where we have a GAAP compiler from a financial firm, convert everything over. And so that information, once that's done, the auditors may come back because they're going to finish cash before that deadline. And then they'll come back later, maybe in July. I'm sorry, that's way too far. January or February, and then they'll finish up the audit work on that. So we'll most likely have our audit report during the month of March 2021, which is usually when they do it for
spring.
us.
I just might add, the board was invited to sit in on that conference,
That's an entrance conference,
entrance
yes.
conference, and I attended, I believe Mrs.
I
Duncan
did,
attended. So it was interesting.
Yeah, it's very dry information. I'm interested because I did it for 10 and a half years, but
If you get the report, it's like 90 pages.
yeah. All right, I think we're on to old business, Mark.
Old business is, we had a discussion at the work session about the use of attorneys, and it's listed as a discussion item again in old business.
If I may. So the reason I want this back on is I want to urge us to have our attorneys draft a policy related to use of attorneys. I want to get some points of clarification as it relates to the subject matter from the president's comments. The first thing is you're indicating related to the library board that you sought advice as to what you did. Did you seek that counsel, or who sought that advice, and from whom?
Well, I said I did, so I did. I'm not really
Who
sure.
did you seek that advice from?
Why does it matter? I contacted 2 different attorneys. I just want to understand the line of questioning.
Well, I guess you just made comments to the board
Yes,
under president's comment where you were indicating that what you did was quote unquote textbook. And so I'm asking who you asked that of and who said it to you.
okay, first of all, you're directing it at me, and it wasn't actually, I wasn't the person that started it. It doesn't matter. It was Mr. Stefanik, Mr. Stevens, myself, and Mrs. Dowell. So we all acted as we should have. So I'm not really sure
Do you mean
why we're going with where we're going
Who
with this.
provided the opinion that it was textbook and who sought that opinion?
It was, I called an OSBA attorney, and I called Helen. She said that. Yep.
Okay, and you just said that she said that. Ms. Zakor? How do you guys know she said that?
Because I just heard her when she put through her comments. She
Well,
just said it.
how did you know it was,
She said OSBA.
okay, but you said that she said that, meaning implying
Teresa just said that.
Helen Carroll. How did you know that?
Okay, okay.
That was, I mean, in the comments that were just made, she said board attorney and OSPA attorneys was the comment in the beginning of the comment.
Well, you have 2 board attorneys. So who said it was textbook, quote unquote?
I already told you, Simon, it was Helen.
Okay.
You've asked me that
Did
twice.
she communicate that in a letter?
Can I just interrupt her really quick, Simon?
I have the floor. I have some questions I'd like answered. So did she communicate that in a letter?
No, it was a phone call.
Who initiated that phone call?
I already said I did, Simon.
Who authorized you to initiate that phone call and get that opinion?
Well, I reached out to Helen early in the year, because this has come up several times. And I said to her, you know, in the 110 school districts that you represent, you know, what is your experience? What is the protocol? And she said, typically, in the 110 districts that I represent, the superintendent calls me, the treasurer calls me, and the board president calls me. She said, now all boards are different. Some boards allow the president and the vice president to call. Some boards allow all board members to call. So she said, you are within your right to call me. That's what board presidents do.
If it helps you any, Mr. Patry, I also called OSBA at a different time, actually before our meeting on the 16th.
I don't know, work session you talk about?
Yeah, the one before this. I spoke to OSBA prior to that. And I was told that, yes, board, it is dictated, since it's not dictated by statute, it's typically a custom policy tradition for the district. And that it's pretty common for a board member to pick up the phone and ask a question of a board attorney.
I'm aware of your emails, Ann, where you're clearly providing them FYI, where we can't engage in any discussion. Unsurprisingly, I don't believe that the emails you've sent out, the videos you've sent out, support anything other than what I said at the last work session. So, but my question was, Ms. Denoy, who authorized you to initiate an opinion from Helen Carroll as it relates to whether it was appropriate to elicit advice from the attorney?
Simon, I've already answered that question. I'm not sure why you're asking it twice. Am I on trial here?
No, I'm trying to understand how we engage our legal counsel.
I already told you, I called Helen.
Okay, so you just
I also
unilaterally made that
asked-
decision, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wait, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the library thing specifically?
Yes, where you said
Mr.
they it
Stefani,
was
did
quote
I reach out to
textbook.
Helen or did you? I mean, I honestly can't remember. It's been a couple, 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
There were several questions about,
I don't even feel like I was the one that initiated this with Helen. I really don't,
well, there.
quite honestly.
Yeah, so there was questions going back and forth about.
It wasn't even me.
Had the board ever been involved in the placement of library trustees? How, if the board ever was involved in library trustee seatings, how did that come to be? And so we actually, and I don't remember who initiated the very first call. But
I think I asked that Helen be consulted to find out what our responsibility was as a school board,
Right.
if any at all.
Right, and so we're trying to find out the different statutes that were out there that would put a school district in the position to be involved in the seating of library trustees. And so when they researched that law, they asked if a conference call or a Zoom call would be a good way to get that information out. And so we did have a Zoom call that involved Dave Stevens, myself, Corinne, and Teresa. And then that's what triggered or informed that group of four to bring that information to the last work session to talk about the library board.
I have to wait for our president to get further point of clarification here on her president's comments related to the attorneys here.
Well, just in the interest of time, Simon, you made the comment, the video that I sent, I believe you said has no real application to what transpired last meeting, or you didn't feel, I forget exactly how you said that. But I think it has direct application, because there was a board member who stated, quote, executive session for legal counsel only applies to imminent or pending litigation. The video that I sent out from the Attorney General's office clearly does not support that statement.
Disagree with you. So, Madam President,
Yes, Simon?
You're not disagreeing with me, just as a matter of record, you're disagreeing with the Ohio Attorney General.
no, I'm once again disagreeing with your interpretation of what the Ohio General put out. So, you said you called both of our attorneys and asked them both specifically, both attorneys, which both attorneys are you referring to?
Dave Lampy and Helen Carroll.
And you asked Dave Lampy, had any board member, constituent directed any legal work without board involvement? And he said, no, that's never happened? Is that what you're saying?
I asked Mr. Lampy because this question has been coming up for like a few months, and it came up at the work session. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't thinking incorrectly, or if something happened that I wasn't aware of. So I called Mr. Lampy. He let me know that you also called him. And I asked him, I said, Mr. Lampy, I actually call him Dave. I said, Dave, if I missed something or if something happened, please tell me so that we can address it, clear it up, deal with it, what have you. I said, the question keeps coming up for the last several months about a board member or board members, probably two, using the attorney as their personal attorney. And he said, absolutely not.
Well, that's not what I was saying happened. You're not using it as a personal attorney. You are calling them unilaterally without the board's approval, engaging them to act on behalf of the school district when it hasn't been authorized. That's the issue, not as a personal attorney. And so, yeah, I did call Dave Lampy after his law firm was authorized by one individual board member to conduct an investigation that had not been authorized by the board. So
He said that didn't happen, Simon. He said,
Well, okay, how would he know
because he was the attorney, correct?
what was authorized and what wasn't? He's gonna have to rely on the representation
No,
of.
he was in that executive session. We were all in that executive session.
Including you, Simon.
I can tell you that my discussion with Mr. Lampy was quite different.
Okay,
So
well then he's not being honest with one of us, and in order to clear that up, I would suggest that we bring Mr. Lampy in here, and Mr. Stefanik was not in that meeting. Mr. Stevens was not in that meeting. Dr. Kumpf came in at the very end of that meeting, but I would suggest to clear this up that we have the 5 board members, the original 5 board members, Mr. Lampy, and I don't think we need Dr. Kumpf to come in and we just clear this up.
no, I think we do need Dr. Kump, and I think
She really came in at the very end.
okay,
and I
she
don't-
was there when it was authorized. So I think she is key. And as far as what happened in executive session, I'm not sure who gave you that opinion that which you revealed in those emails was not a violation of the executive session?
Now you're talking about something different.
Yeah, it's a different.
Okay, right. That was Helen.
And who authorized you to seek that opinion?
Again, that was me, Simon. I reached out to Helen because Joellen said I violated executive session. Had I violated executive session, I wanted to either apologize, find out what I did. I was very upset and concerned that I violated executive session. I was distraught about that. And I wanted to see if I did something wrong and then how the district moves forward. What do we do? We've had executive session violations in the past, and they always kind of, I don't want to say get swept under the carpet, but for the most part, they do.
Well,
I wanted to own my mistake if I had made a mistake.
plus there can be intentional and unintentional.
Well, and I just wanted to see if I did something wrong.
So I'm going to renew what I said
Sure.
last work session, is that no individual board member here has the authority to seek advice on board business without the board as a whole directing it. No one member can do that. Mr. Stefanik and Mr. Stevens are authorized and per our policies and per what we've authorized in our previous meetings. That does not mean that they're the gatekeepers to green light any individual thing that you want to pursue. And so what I feel needs to occur is that we need to have a policy written that drafts, that outlines in clear language when the board attorney can be engaged and how and by whom. And that is my position. If people continue to engage our legal counsel as an individual constituent on school board business without board of director, school board discussion, or rather, I will file a lawsuit seeking an injunction as well as forfeiture of office.
Simon, I am telling you that according to Dave Lampy and according to Helen, now Helen represents 110 districts. Every other district that she represents, the board president and typically the board vice president can call legal counsel or ask a question as they deem necessary. For the 5 years that I've been on this school board, the president of the school board, I don't know about the vice president, always called legal counsel, always.
We have
So apparently we are going, what you're asking is that Tipp City Schools be the only district where the board president and board vice president are not allowed to call legal counsel. It is the school board attorney.
It's the board.
I
think it's
disagree.
have to do with trust.
No.
Like if we trust one another, you know, there's no reason. I mean,
Simon,
I don't understand.
I'm a little intrigued in hearing this, that you just recently reached out to the.
Dave Lampy.
So what was your
disclosed it.
what was your justification?
Understanding who authorized-
As an individual member to pick up the phone, you're engaging in the very activity that you're criticizing.
I was requesting information as to who authorized board action because I wasn't aware we had authorized it. And I wanted to understand that.
So in that context, it's okay for you to engage in contact an attorney, but not for another board member.
There's a difference between contacting an attorney and directing legal services to be performed.
There definitely is. There definitely
There's a
is. I
huge
agree with you.
distinction there.
I
So
agree.
for me to call the attorney and ask him why we engage in a course of conduct when I'm not aware of it and who directed it is very, very different than me calling the attorney and telling them to provide me a legal opinion as to something that I want to pursue, whether I want to be informed or not. I'm asking for what's previously occurred.
Okay, but nonetheless, you're seeking information. You are seeking information and you are engaging in the very activity that you have brought forth and criticizing other members.
That's not at all that true. And I think that anybody who's watching this will understand the distinction. The other thing is that no one board under our policy member has the right to engage our legal counsel. And so if Helen Carroll, the attorney, is indicating that any constituent of this board has the authority and the right to engage legal counsel to start legal services, I would love to have Helen tell us that in person, because that is, in my opinion, a violation
No,
of the
what
law.
she's saying is we're allowed to reach, go ahead, Mr. Stein.
Okay, well, I was just going to check in. Mr. Veerhoff and I kind of checked with some other school districts to see where their policies were. I don't get surprised often, but I was surprised at the number of school districts that don't have an attorney board policy out there, but the ones that have the policy, I guess I would call it the detail, because it would be more detail in the policies that we saw to get to what Mr. Patry is suggesting. And that's fine if that's what the board wants to go, but primarily they talk about who is authorized to contact. And I agree with what Mr. Patry said. There's a difference between contacting for
Information.
counsel or guidance,
Yeah.
and triggering some service, with the board or with the attorney. But the policies that we saw said superintendent, treasurer, president or vice president contact, superintendent, treasurer, entire board contact the attorneys if something came up. But the actual language about triggering, a service or enacting board action, or services that would inform board action. That kind of language isn't there, but that phrase that's in our current policy is in virtually all of them, which says the board will determine what the efficient and effective use of a board counsel is. And so that's what I'm hearing, is that the board wants to have a discussion to create a policy that distinguishes between calling for counsel and enacting research or action, to inform board direction or board action. And that just hasn't been in the policies that we have seen, and we've seen Neola district policies, and we've seen OSBA policy districts as well, in there. So to create that, we can definitely do that. We can, engage Neola if they have some kind of a starting point template out there. We can engage one or both of our legal counsels to draft, samples that would address those
Well, if I may,
those
Mr.
questions.
Stefani, before we start drafting things, I think there needs to be some consensus built among the board as to what the end objective is.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
going to be very clear on the record. I believe that each board member should be able to have individual access to a board attorney within the appropriate framework. And I agree. I don't think anybody in here disagrees with the statement that there is a difference between reaching out to board counsel for information, advice, opinion, whatever. And there is a distinction between that and then one board member, two board members directing counsel to engage in a true legal process. There's no confusion there on my part. I don't know about anybody else. And so to conflate those two, it's a problem here, because I don't know that any one or two people have engaged legal counsel in legal action, legal proceeding.
No, but the constituents of this board have engaged our attorneys to provide legal services on subject matter that relates to the public school business without authority of the board and without discussion of the board.
So to be clear, Simon, really, I want to have no misunderstanding communications. For example, when the library trustee thing came up at our last meeting and somebody engaged Rotzel Andrus to do a quick background review of the statute and our policy, are you considering that to be, is that what you're talking about?
That's a violation.
Okay, 1 second, please. You feel the better, proper procedure would have been to do what, Simon?
Not the better, the legal required procedure is that if you're going to get our attorneys to do something that's going to cost this district money to research something that you're interested in, before you do that, you've got to bring it to the board. Then the board has to make the decision whether they want to invest that type of money. It's not your decision to make.
So how?
And so, and there's a case on point on this.
Which
and-
is, which
and-
case is that?
In removal of, I can't pronounce it, it's Kuehnle.
KUE.
Hnle. The site is 2005-Ohio 2373. In that board, it was clear that we're not talking about,
I'm sorry, but what case is this? From where? Appeals court?
it's
What are
the
we
Court of
talking-
Appeals. As you know, in the video that you sent out,
Which is which court, please?
it's 12th District Court.
Thank you.
So as your video points out that you sent
Not
out,
my video,
That-
it was the Attorney General's video.
well, okay, as the Attorney General video that you shared with everybody points out, is that the General Assembly is not legislated specifically in this specific area. Further, the Ohio Supreme Court has not addressed this issue. And so as a result, the Attorney General was not willing to provide an opinion as to the
That's correct.
propriety of hosting such gatherings. So
That's correct.
providing that video, in my opinion, is like, this is interesting, but means nothing. That's
No,
legally what it
It
means.
meant a lot.
And so, but
It
there is a case on
corrected-
point that's
whoa,
got-
1 second,
hold
here, that
on.
video.
I've got the floor. You can take notes and respond when I'm done.
Thank you.
So in this case, you had some really significant egregious conduct that I'm not saying is present here, but it articulates something that's very, very important that is cited by multiple sources as a reference as to circumventing the Ohio Public Meetings Act. One, and the other thing is breaching our fiduciary duties as a board. As a board member, we take an oath to abide and uphold the Constitution of the United States, Ohio, as well as the laws of the state, the city, and the policies of this board. One of our own policies states that we do not speak for the rest of the board. We individually have no authority to act on behalf of the board. And so when you are engaging services that are going to cost a school district money without engaging the rest of the board, you're going well beyond your authority and you're causing a service to be provided without authority. That is a violation of your fiduciary duty. Furthermore, when you're doing that when it comes to legal services at the exclusion of the board and exclusion of the public, and then you have a legal service provided that's going to provide an answer that's dependent on the way that question is asked, now you're also violating the Ohio Public Meetings Act and as well as your fiduciary duty. So we can keep doing this going back and forth, or we can just have a policy that indicates what the law already requires. If we don't, that's fine. I will file a lawsuit and then we will find out whether I'm right or wrong on the law on this.
I guess that's your prerogative. Now, if I may, one of the values and pearls in that Ohio Attorney General video was refuting your declarative statement at the last meeting, quote, executive session for legal counsel only applies to imminent or pending litigation. And it's clear that you can invite legal counsel into any executive session, even that if that executive session does not pertain to imminent or pending litigation.
That's correct if it relates to confidential information. But
No, that is not true. You can invite anybody into any executive session. It is the board's right. They can invite the milkman in if they feel there's an applicability for it. And they can invite their counsel into any executive session.
my statement was engaging legal counsel
No,
does
your
not
statement,
automatically.
Simon, no, I'm not finished. Your statement was executive session for legal counsel only applies to imminent or pending litigation. That was a false statement to the public because executive session for legal counsel can be on any executive session topic if the board chooses to bring them in.
I was referring as to what attorney-client privilege, the
You didn't
interrelationship.
say it that way.
Well-
You may have been thinking that, but that's not what you projected to the public.
Okay. Well, engaging our legal counsel as it relates to executive session will not be confidential or part of executive session unless it has to do with confidential information in which they're getting invited related to that. Or if it relates to pending litigation or actual litigation. So if we are talking about engaging our legal counsel as it relates to understanding what our obligations are related to the public library, that is not something that would fall within the executive session because there's no confidential information there and it's related to something that we're trying to ascertain. That is what I'm talking about. Now, once we get in there, if we find out, if you start that process and now we find out that there's issues that relate to confidential information, it's possible that you've taken out something that would have been in a public discussion at a public meeting, and now it's appropriately within the purview of executive session outside of the public hearing. So now the result of that is we've engaged our attorneys to provide legal services, and they don't know why or how we got to there now, and they never will. And so how much have we spent on attorneys so far, Mr. Stevens, this year?
Calendar year, it's over 100,000.
Over $100,000 in the calendar year in attorney fees thus far.
How much is it typically every year, Dave?
75 to 100,000 plus.
Well,
So it's the same.
let's put a little fairness
least
into
now
the
we have
dialogue.
closer.
Simon, I'm with you. I was the creator of some of the attorney things that I saw from previous things. So, I'll stand shoulder to shoulder on scrutinizing overzealous use of attorneys and wasting tax dollars. This year was a little different though. We hired a new
COVID.
superintendent. We had to look at severance pay policies. There were unique events in this year that are not in every school year. Now, I haven't looked at those numbers closely. I don't know how I feel about them. They've not been presented to us. I may say that they're in line, they're excessive. I don't know, I haven't seen them. But at the same time, you do need to balance this conversation out with events.
Well, I think that,
Yeah, COVID.
I'm totally, Simon, I'll just own the library board, and I think that that's something that I hear you saying. I thought I was doing research to bring to us. I see your point that you would much rather prefer this to happen in a public comment discussion. I wanted to have information for us to have as discussion points. I think we do need a policy and we can lay it out. When I referred to the policy that we had, I thought, oh, okay, this is within my realm as a vice president to do this. But I don't want to argue and I don't want to waste 30 minutes of our time when we could be working on other things. I'm just saying this is important. We need a policy. I'm in agreement. Let's move forward and let's start and we'll work on a policy.
I do have a question, Simon, for you. Have you ever called Helen as a board member?
I'm sure I have, related to getting clarification of the services she's provided, yes.
Okay, have you ever emailed her?
I'm sure I have.
Okay, so if you're saying that myself and Corinne aren't allowed to reach out to Helen, you've reached out to Helen, so I don't see, you know what I'm saying? It kind of seems like a little bit of
Double standard.
hypocrisy or double standard.
It's not a distinction without a difference. There's a distinction here you're failing to recognize. My reaching out to Helen to understand what we've done, or to say, hey, what's going on? What do we charge you for? How we engaged you? How is this possible? That is different than me saying, hey, I would like to pursue this specific particular mode of thought. That's very different. I sent Helen an 18-page email saying that I thought that what she was doing was unlawful.
Okay.
So
there really is a distinction. I mean, the whole.
Absolutely, we all
There
agree
is a
with that.
distinction.
Sure,
And
we all agree.
Corinne has owned the action of, I understand you wanted to come prepared.
And let's do this.
What
differently
happens
moving
is we
forward.
get a monthly summary of Helen's activities. Some of them are a surprise to me, and the library was one of them.
Right,
And
and
so I responded to her and said, who directed that? And she said that you did.
But just for the record, Corinne, I'm not so sure I agree with your
yeah, I think,
Well,
I think we did everything correctly.
I asked her questions.
She said you did, oh, specifically.
But all I'm saying is that if this board would like a different policy to have different actions in the future so that we can all work together, that's fine with me.
Well, the response was an opinion that they researched, so we are.
Right,
in
I
charge
did
of
ask her
that.
for
So-
her opinion.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so that's the action that he's describing.
And that's,
You're acknowledging
I'm just
that,
saying, yeah, let's just go ahead, we'll craft a policy and move this ship
Well,
forward.
to move the
Ship.
ship.
The ship.
Ship, yeah, ship.
Oh, the
ship,
mast.
ship. Oh, it sounded, I know. It
Move
sounded
the
like
train
another word.
forward.
I don't have a button.
It came out different. It came out different.
I should have picked different
So-
transportation.
Dave
Yeah.
Stevens shared something, a distinction that was laid out by Dave Lampy. Why can't that be the policy? He said he has a policy with other districts. Why wouldn't we look at the language in that policy?
We'll put it on the next board
Well,
meeting. Let's do it.
well, and just, Joellen, you and I were on the board with Dave Lampy from the very beginning. And with Dave Lampy, it was only the board president could reach out. And then when I became president and when Corinne became vice, we didn't think that was fair because all 5 of us got elected equally. In my personal opinion, I believe yours is the same, is that I don't want to tell you, Simon or Ann, that you can't call Helen or Dave, because here's why. We all look at things different. You know, Simon and Ann have the legal, you always bring in kind of like the HR aspect. Corinne, you have the education, so I value that. And if I know that you're calling Helen or Dave, I'm like, great, that's one less thing that I have to deal with. You're going to bring that information to the board. We're all going to discuss it. I want everybody to be engaged.
And that policy,
That's my plan.
and
That's my
that
goal.
policy may say all 5 of us can call.
Yes.
When we get that policy and we vote on it, then that's what it'll be.
But there's still,
Whatever it'll be.
but there's still a difference. There's still a
Absolutely.
difference. And so my question is, instead of the 8 of us here talking about it, who should I schedule to facilitate the discussion? Because there's a piece about who gets to call, and then there's a definition of what are the types of calls and the different types of calls to get that distinction between counsel, if you will, and triggering a process.
Do
I
we
can
think that's
get-
a fair question,
Yeah.
Mr. Stefanik, but I believe personally it's premature because we haven't even hashed out as the five of us is what we want our policy to look like.
Yeah, I'm pulling up, we have no work sessions in November. I was just pulling up my
Exactly.
phone.
I feel that there needs to be some type of a.
Let's have a work.
Within the legal bounds on it. I mean, obviously, we're not going to try to craft a policy that's in violation of you know.
I think.
We can, our
work session-
policy cannot authorize every
But
board
as I
member
was
to
still
use
saying,
legal
as I was saying,
services.
as far as like the five being contact, not only in terms of gathering information individually to bring forth to the board, but also I see it as a checks and balance. Not only for our board, but in future boards, if you feel there's something inappropriately being done, who do you turn to? Because when you call OSPA, they only tell you.
Yeah, they're not very, they don't drill
Well,
down.
no, they give you legal information, but then they stop at that and say, I cannot give you legal advice. You need to talk to
Reach
your
out to
board
legal counsel,
attorney.
correct.
The attorney
So-
represents the board. It does not represent any constituent.
Oh,
If the
absolutely.
constituent is acting unlawfully as the board, if the board attorney understands that and is contacted or understands it through some other representation, then that attorney has the ability to kind of set things right.
Can we agree that we need to sit down as a board
Yes.
and discuss the policy, come prepared if we schedule.
Does everybody want to get their phones out for November?
So prepared
Can't we
to,
just
I,
look over the draft that Dave Lampy sent us and
Did
that
he
be
send
the
us a
starting
draft?
point?
I think that's the best way to do it. I don't want to have a meeting.
Yeah,
where-
we already have it.
Whatever suggestions, again, I've said it several
have a
times
meeting.
now.
We can't violate open
If
meetings.
we're contacting the attorney, it's my expectation that you follow the exact same thing that I would do for myself. I would call Teresa or email her and tell her, I'm going to do this.
Well, that's why we're looking at policy.
And it-
But again, it's a
We wanna
professional
make that
activity. If you're gonna
policy.
have this check and balance system, there's your check and balance.
Nobody can,
I'm not suggesting that I was gonna authorize anything with the attorney. I would be telling her of my intent. It's her job then to say, wait a minute, that really should go before the board. Or I agree, you're just seeking direction on, a protocol.
Well, I mean, I'm
That's the
only.
check and balance.
Sure, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm only president for 6 more weeks. My personal opinion is I trust you guys. I don't want to be the micromanager. I don't want to be the gatekeeper. I mean, not that we call a lot.
That's not
But
the intent, Teresa.
I
It's the
understand.
check and balance.
I know, and I appreciate that, but I'm saying
Accountability.
I trust you. I don't, you know what I'm saying? But to your point though, if you did say that, I could say, we already had the answer, or that already came up.
Yes, or
Yeah,
you could
I
say,
get it. I get
Why
it.
don't we do this first before
Totally,
you
I get
contact the attorney?
I get it.
That's the issue.
Sure, I get
And
it.
we just had this whole leadership thing on trust.
Yeah,
And about, all of the things that make us vulnerable and,
Right.
and want to work better together.
Mhm.
Finding out from the attorney that someone, in this case Corinne, has authorized them to research the library board, I would have been putting the brakes on that right away. To
See, I
say
think
there
it's-
are
I
other resources to do
And
that.
as another board member, I find it totally appropriate. And in my view, it goes into the category of running an efficient meeting. I appreciated having that information on the front end before I came into the meeting. I think it's a good use of taxpayers' time,
Mhm.
money, et cetera. And if it helps to bring a corrective measure in a correct way, then problem solved. Move
But
forward.
Yeah.
but it also incurs another expense, an expense of trust internally and externally.
So I think that we can talk about that decision that I made, and we will never agree to the cows come home. What I do think we can all agree on is that we need to make a policy so that
Can
in
we
the
set a
future we're on
date
the
for
same page.
this? Can we
well,
set a
Simon
date?
and Joellen suggested that we all read that piece, the email that Dave Lampy sent us. And,
And then what?
well, I don't know, but
well, I'm not sure that the email that Dave Lampy sent us any policy. It just basically said
He says he has one.
he says he has one.
right.
So I would suggest that we authorize him to send us one. It's already drafted. Rather than have him do something custom, he's gonna have something that's gonna largely comply with the law. Once we review it, we can look at it and discuss it openly in a work session. and discuss whether we like it, what we like, what we don't like, and whether we want any revisions. Now we have something to work from versus us never having drafted that, not knowing which items should be included, what shouldn't. We have nothing to start from. We're gonna be just shooting in the
Right.
dark.
Well, we have the one that Ann sent us from OSPA, so, Dave, can we task you, I'm sorry, what? Did I not see something you sent all of us regarding,
I didn't see anything
It
from most
wasn't a
of
policy, it was a definition of a legal.
yeah, definition, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it's reference policy 0174, our policy. We don't really have a policy.
That's what that.
Okay,
was
gotcha,
from us,
right.
But he looked at our.
Okay, sorry. So Dave, can we task you with just reaching out to Mr. Lampy and Helen and just, ask them if they have any current ones. Mr. Stefanik has already said that Neola does not have one.
We have a few.
We have 0174, but all it says is the board will
I
just.
mean, we found a few.
Okay, so
Very
can you just
small.
send them all to us? And then from there, do we want to schedule a work session now? Because if we're
Yes.
coming up on Thanksgiving and Christmas, we're all gonna get busy.
I think that if we can come at 5 on the 16th and we'll have a work session for an hour before our BOE meeting, we can get them both done.
Does everybody feel like an hour will be enough?
Yes.
Simon Joellen?
So we'll
Okay,
so we'll do an
so
hour work session
can we-
before that.
We don't need, yeah, and then I'll send an email right now to Mrs. Robbins, because she's the one that notifies the public of the times. Oh, no, you do that, Dave, right?
So,
And then she usually updates it on the page.
so Dave, I'm not sure I caught what you were saying. You all have some examples of draft
Yes.
policies?
Mr. Bierhoff and Mr. Stefanik found some policies from some other districts. Now, you would think that we would have 611 policies from all of the public school
District,
districts.
we don't
Wow.
You said not everybody had one.
Most
We're
people don't
surprised.
have one. So we'll take the ones that we did find and we will provide them to you tomorrow in an email.
I personally would be okay with you selecting the one that you think makes the best fit for our district, and that's the one we use to
I'm-
modify.
I'm personally not okay with that.
Can I just add two quick things? One is regarding the public library. This was kind of a unique situation because our Board of Education and our Tipp City Public Library are set up, it's not very common. And when Mr. Stefanik started researching this, I think he told me when we were doing this agenda that it's Piqua and Oakwood. So it's kind of a unique situation. And so there aren't a lot of places to get information on this. So in this particular case, because the Board of Education handles the appointment, that was the reason why it was specific to ask Helen, not like an OSPA situation. But I completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah,
But this
I
is-
completely understand where you're coming from. Secondly, Dave stated tonight that our current legal bills are $100,000, that they're typically 100 for the whole year. It's obviously middle of October. But we did.
That was a calendar year.
Okay. Oh, okay, great. Well, yeah, we're right where we are every year. We had COVID. We had a new superintendent. And I'm super proud of the 5 of us and the 8 people in this whole entire room. We have done a lot for $100,000. We have all of these policy changes. We did the salary, the vacation. Oh my gosh, we actually fixed things that we're not gonna have to go back and task the next board or the next board or the next board. We said, Helen came to us and said, okay, I got your question. Do you know you don't have a policy? It's like, what? And, several times, thank you, Dave, you were able to work through that with Helen and realize that we either didn't have a policy or the policy was unclear or needed updated. So we spent the same amount of money as we did last year, but my gosh, we fixed a lot of policies this year. And I'm proud, I'm very, very proud of that.
The public library is not the only issue here. That's just the latest one.
Okay.
The reason that this policy needs to be put in place is that there was an investigation launched that had to cost close to $30,000 to $40,000 in legal fees that generated hundreds of pages in a binder for things that related to years ago. So that's what I'm talking about. Those types of things are a problem.
Gotcha, understood.
Under old business, I didn't put it on the ask.
Okay, go, you don't have to put it officially on, no.
Okay. Are we we finished with the attorney board thing?
I think we're finished, yeah.
Schedule work session for 5 o'clock. Dave and I
Yep,
will,
November 16th.
we'll
Yep.
either get the draft that Dave Lampy has, and we'll send out the, again, although we have 5 to 8 from districts, some of them are duplicates, and so we'll just send out the template of the ones that are there, and they have a little bit of an extension of that. The board will create an effective and efficient use of the adjournments. There's a little bit of extension, but my hope is that the template that Dave Lampy has even more than we have in these. Because I think what is being discussed here, we need more detail and more specificity in the policy to make sure that the distinction is laid out in narrative, so that everybody's clear about how to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, I just thought it was important because I can't believe we're moving into Thanksgiving here in a few weeks and then Christmas, and the year's gonna wrap up fast. Under old business, I thought it would be really helpful, especially for the public, to do a review of the Board of Education activities and impact for the year 2020. So I just made a quick sort of hit list here.
This really wasn't part of the agenda based on what we added, is it?
No, it's under old business though. I just wanted to do a quick review under old business.
Okay.
Reorganized, starting off, this board reorganized board committees to be more meaningful. This board convened 32 meetings total year to date. I think it's a very hardworking board. And we had vision at the beginning of the year to schedule these work sessions in advance. Little did we know COVID was coming. So that was really, I thought, great foresight or dedication on our part. 32 meetings so far to this date is impressive. This board added citizen comments at the end of the meeting, in addition to keeping citizen comments at the beginning of the meeting, allowing 2 opportunities at each meeting, and that set a precedent for communications with the public. This board also reserved a regular spot on the board agenda for TCEA, Tipp City Education Association, better known as the Teachers Union, so that each and every month the teachers have a voice. They can come in, they have their designated space and time to have a voice. That voice is not monitored. Their comments are not screened. We don't know. I don't believe, do you?
No, I don't ever ask.
Until they arrive. So I think it's a great venue to allow open, honest dialogue on a routine basis and to say to teachers, we value your voice. This is a first for this board, and I'm proud to be a part of that. This board interviewed and hired a new superintendent to succeed a retired superintendent. In that process, we added 4 additional meetings. Our last meeting that we had in the interviewing process was 7 hours long. If you all recall, we went in there at 5 p.m. and we didn't leave till a little after midnight. Again, this is a very dedicated, hardworking board. COVID-19 hit our country and our schools closed in March. The board was kept informed as administrators and teachers worked very hard to pick up the pieces and keep education of the district students at the forefront. For months, the district operated on a week-to-week and sometimes a day-to-day basis, trying to keep pace in an ever-changing COVID-19 landscape. The board stayed focused on reviewing and improving our policies. We changed the length of employment years required to get 3 weeks vacation. We reduced it from 10 years to 6 years for full-time classified staff, helping the district stay competitive and retaining good employees and attracting new hires. I'm so glad that was updated because it was an antiquated time frame of 10 years to get 3 weeks. And thank you, Mr. Stevens, for pointing that out to us. As contracts renew, the board changed administrator insurance benefits from 100% employer paid to 80% employer paid, with 20% employees paying, to align that with the teacher's plan, creating greater equity among employees and saving taxpayers dollars. Mr. Stefanik, if I remember correctly, I think you're the first administrator to fall into that 80-20 plan, am I right?
I will be in that category
Okay.
next school year.
Okay, so there we have it from our leader at the top. The board changed the technology and business administrator positions to coordinators, again, saving taxpayers money and opening the doors to seek proven talent and expertise with greater latitude beyond just the requirements of a formal education for entry. The board pushed to reopen our schools and sports, extracurricular activities for the 2021 school year. We were sensitive to parents worried about maintaining their employment, providing daycare, and that many students would struggle on a computer at home by themselves. And then on a couple final very recent things, the board does approve schedules, bell schedules, and what that looks like in school. Because of COVID, some things got rearranged where backpacks were being required to be carried throughout the day. And working with administration, the board heard these concerns, and we've got it changed back now where backpacks are no longer being required to be lugged around all day. It was a big deal because it's heavy, the glasses were fogging, the masks were on going up and down steps. So the administrators found a very creative way to alternate those locker times, and our students have their backpacks back in the locker. And it is also a better reinforcement for our safety in terms of weapons, drugs, contraband, et cetera. And then part of that also was improving the hallway transition times from 3 minutes to 4 minutes to allow a little bit of extra time to decompress and to give the students, especially the females, some time in the restroom as needed for their needs.
I forgot some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, we've been busy.
It's a nice recap.
We've been
Thank you.
And I think, did we do something with the severance pay?
Yeah.
Dave, did we do something with severance pay? I'm
We
trying
did
to
something
remember.
also with the severance pay. So
Moving forward.
So
The
moving
severance, the
forward.
severance pay has not been changed yet. The vacation payout was changed when we addressed the
Okay.
vacation.
Yeah,
payout.
they're thinking vacation. But it's the severance, it's the same.
So they
The
don't
same bucket.
accrue, we put a limit on how much accrual there can be, is that correct?
For vacation leave. You-
Okay.
It's been changed for classified staff have to get down to 10 days by the end of the year, and administration has to be down to 5 days. But we're giving them 3 years to get down to that.
Yes, and so in other words, the end goal was to help prevent these large $100,000 payouts at the end of,
150.
again, thinking of our taxpayers, so. That's it for me.
Okay, is
Item
there, anybody else have any old business items? Okay, I think we're good, Mr. Stefanik, on new business.
All right. Item 8, new business, is the consent agenda items. Again, as a reminder, consent agenda was put together that you can address several items with one vote, but any member may request any item to be removed from the consent agenda, and then they would just go into item 9 under general new business.
I would move to remove items A, B, and C from the new business consent agenda.
Which ones?
The minutes, B and C.
B and C.
And if I understood your initial motion that you requested that we discuss the business manager, I think you asked us to approve it.
No, I asked that to be pulled out and put into its own item,
Okay.
and I have moved that out. It is currently its own item now under
Okay.
new business.
All right. thank you.
So we have an approval of all consent agenda items except for items B and C to be moved to new business.
Does that require a motion in a second? I'm still getting used to this.
Yeah.
We talked about this
No,
last time.
actually, no.
I'm still getting used to
Oh,
this.
to remove them? No, no, you're right.
I'm still getting used to
Now,
this.
Dave, I'm trying to, and maybe I heard it wrong. Mr. Patrick, did you ask for B and C to be removed,
Yes,
or everything but B and C to be removed?
just B and
Just B and
C.
C removed, just the minutes to go to separate items and new business.
Let me,
So now we make a motion to
With those being moved, you'll make a motion to accept
To
everything
accept
that's
the
left.
consent agenda minus A and B.
Minus B and
B and
C.
C, A, yeah, you're right, just, yeah, B and C.
How about I just make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for the exceptions that you just noted,
Perfect.
Simon?
I'll second.
Motion and second, Heatherly and Patrick. Any
Okay,
discussion? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Zakor.
Yes.
motion carries. On to new business.
And just as a point, not to be critical, but
Yeah,
just as a
we're
point of
learning, yeah.
reference with consent agenda, typically after the motion and the second, you don't ask for discussion.
Oh,
Because
it's a consent agenda, that makes sense.
Right,
Gotcha.
if you would start to
We already
discuss
consented.
something, you should have moved it to a new
Perfect.
discussion, so that just saves a step.
I guess the name consent should have been the biggest clue.
Yeah. All right,
Okay.
regular new business,
Yeah.
item A, treasurer, secondary employment. Motion to allow the treasurer to take additional contract employment with the Fairborn Digital Academy to serve as their fiscal officer.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, Heatherly and Dahl. Any discussion?
Yes. I guess I have some concerns and I guess, not concerns, reservations. And first, let me say, Mr. Stevens, I do not believe that you would ever be derelict in your duties or in the performance of your job. I just think that the treasurer position is a very important one and one that demands a lot of time. It is not an 8 to 5 job. It is a full-time career, and you are, after the superintendent, very likely one of the most, if not the most important positions for a school district. I do not feel comfortable having a position that's that important, having another job, even if it's just part-time and because I just don't know when that will conflict. And it is not a criticism of how good you are. I think you're a great treasurer, but I just want you to be our treasurer very selfishly. The other thing is I'm not sure if we've run this by our own legal counsel. I'm not a school attorney, but I know just from reading certain things that historically treasurers are actually statutorily prohibited from doing anything other than their treasurer position for one school district. There was an exception recently made, I think as it relates to business operations. And I think there's also another statute on point where it says that a treasurer can be jointly employed by 2 school districts, but that requires an agreement among the school districts. And so knowing that, I start to think, well, are we now going to be in a joint employment situation? If that's the case, then I would have to understand what the terms would be. If it's not the case, then I think I'd have to understand why it's not and why it's permitted, or have some type of understanding that we can legally do this. But that's kind of like an aside. I think my preference would be is that you're only the school treasurer for Tipp City. It's a full-time position. It's one of the most important. It's a career position. This is not kind of an 8 to 5 job. And so there's going to be days you're going to work a lot more than 40 hours a week. And that's kind of part of the reason that we pay as much as we do. And so I'm not in favor of approving this for that reason. And I know, and I do, and I say this with a heavy heart, Mr. Stevens, because I know that you're not doing this because you don't think that you can do more. I know you can, and I know that that money would provide you and your family more opportunities. And so I had a hard time really making this decision to really voice opposition. But at the end of the day, I think I've got, just knowing from my experience, when you've got career positions that are this important with this many responsibilities that impact so many lives, I just have concerns that adding something to that with a secondary job is just too much. And so I'm not in favor of this.
Mr. Stevens, did you ask our school lawyer or any lawyer if there would be a conflict of interest or of the law that you could not do this?
I spoke very briefly with Retzel and Andrus. Fred Compton, he indicated that there is an ORC that provides that a school district treasurer may be employed by two different school districts, public school districts, and they would have to have an agreement with each other, just acknowledging the employment for both districts.
This is a digital academy?
This is a community school, and I did have I asked the Digital Academy's treasurer, the Digital Academy superintendent to use their attorney to look into this issue, as I didn't feel it was appropriate for our attorney to look into this issue. And I also looked through ORC for this as well. This does not count as a public school district that would have to fall under that second school district agreement. I know plenty of school district treasurers that have multiple contracts, that have had multiple contracts with multiple schools. Again, I mentioned that this treasurer that I am taking over for, if this was approved, had done numerous, at least 2 or 3 community schools at the same time as doing a regular public school district. So I was told by the FDA superintendent, Fairborn Digital Academy's FDA, by the way. I was told by the superintendent that he's cleared everything with his attorney. Things look good. My contract is if my contract did not state that for any secondary employment, the treasurer would need to have it approved, written approval by the board, I wouldn't have to do anything. However, it is there, and so that's why everything has been addressed here.
Do you think, Mr. Stevens, if it ever got too intense, that you would just let us know that you're having a hard time? I know professionally you would. I just would like to hear you say that you promised you're going to reach out if you ever felt like you're in over your head, or you're going to take care of it.
If I didn't think that I could do this, I wouldn't have done it.
Awesome.
And I would let you know if I'm at the end of my rope. I will state that, yes, Mr. Patrice noted that this would be able to provide more for me and my family as an opportunity. And that is one of the reasons why I looked into this. There was no cost of living increase for administration this year, neither for the classified staff. However, they were able to fall back on the step increase for those that were still available to get the step increase. For those that were in a gap, that was unfortunate. But and I also have a child in college and 2 children that just got their driver's license, and another 4 children underneath that are coming up. And so, yeah, this is a great opportunity for me. And also, there was discussion with the FDA superintendent that stated that, there could be opportunities for training sessions where something I would go to for Tipp City would also benefit the FDA, and he was interested in setting up a secondary agreement where those costs would be split. So something that I would go to anyway could now be half price. That was just an idea, a little carrot to dangle in front of everybody to say, hey, we can save a little money here. So
That was nice of them.
I appreciate Mr. Patrick's comments. I understand where he's coming from, but I would really like the opportunity to do this second job.
Mr. Stevens, may I ask you a couple?
Sure.
So contractually, or statutorily, there's nothing that prohibits this?
Not that I'm aware of, and not that anything with Fairborn Digital Academy.
And it's decided to be in your contract, it's written, a secondary job requires board approval.
That is correct.
Okay, question, roughly how many hours do you anticipate a month on the secondary?
I would say 3 to 5 hours a week. So you're looking at 20, maybe if there is a 5-year forecast, but that's already been done by their current treasurer. So I would need to do that again until next May. But it is much, much, much less involved than what this public school district's 5-year forecast looks like. So it is obviously, this is a side opportunity. The money is nothing compared to what this position is.
Sure.
But it's just.
But nonetheless, it's always helpful.
It is always helpful, yes.
My second question is, should you proceed with this and then down the road you find out, oh, maybe this, is a little longer than what was presented to me, or I'm just, do you have the option to resign at that point?
Anybody has the option to resign from any position. I mean, now this position is done on an annual basis. So this job would end July 31st and then be renewed for another one-year contract. This is not done in multiple years. This is a one-year contract running from August 1st through July 31st. And since we're already into October, I mean, that's when it starts. So this is kind of like an 8-month trial run. And if it doesn't work out, then we just step back and say, you know, it didn't go as well as we thought it would.
So with the exception of that clause in your contract, basically, if that wasn't there, it's like what you do in your free time is your business, basically, correct?
Yes, but I understand what Simon was saying, that he feels that this is, it's the main job.
Who doesn't want the main job to suffer? Nobody here
Right,
does.
and nobody does.
No, absolutely.
Nobody does. And I'm not the kind of person that would let something suffer. I mean,
And you would remedy that by doing what?
by working more.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I always try to work until the job gets done.
Well, I'm inclined to at least try it.
Yes.
If it's too much for you, I believe that you will fix it, whatever that takes. And I do think that Simon did have some good concerns. I mean, we're supposed to be stewards of our community. And, you know, he's just thinking Tipp City schools first, which should be in all our hearts. So, but I think that, you know, also you have a family and we have to be, I want to be compassionate towards that.
I appreciate that.
Well, in my view, and I agree with Sonia, I had those concerns initially too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, this is it's a big job, it's a primary job. But at the same time, I know how I believe, watching firsthand the incredible hours that you put in. It's not 8 to 5, just even since COVID.
Yeah.
All that you've done with the technology. Sometimes I think you're the technology guy, Mr. Steve.
He was during COVID.
I mean, you know, like, okay, so that was your second job, technology, but
Yeah.
so I'm willing to. You're going to gauge it, you're going to monitor it. If you feel it's something suffering, you're going to correct it.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge all of, I mean, it was, you know, a team effort, everybody on the team, but you were, you know, responsible for all of the technology, the setting up the meetings during COVID, and that was a lot.
And prior to having this.
Yes, those were some extreme.
Well,
moments,
just
so.
wait until we get the audio equipment we're looking for so that we can move meetings around. I mean,
Right,
that will be
right.
me as well.
We're still doing all this, yeah, we're still constantly doing this kind of stuff, so,
Yep.
thank you.
I'll always do what I can.
It's appreciated.
Very much.
Does that, Joellen, do you have any okay, we're good. I think we're ready for a vote, Mr. Stevens.
All right, appreciate
Seeing
it.
that there's no more comments.
So we had a first by Mrs. Heatherly. So Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Patrick,
No.
Zakor.
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 9C, approval of business operations
Oh,
coordinator.
we're on B.
Oh, I clicked one too many.
Oh, yeah, and it
Sorry.
just got changed, so
All right.
resignation.
9B, approval to accept the following resignation. Kelly Drayton, assistant high school swim coach, effective October 23rd, 2020.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion seconded, Dunaway and Zakor. Any comments? Seeing that there's none, Mr. Stevens, we're ready for a vote.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Zakor,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, now 9C, approval of business operations coordinator for the 2021 school year. Recommended candidate, Kim Hagan. Step 2 on the salary schedule, effective November 2nd, 2020, first of the 2-year contract.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded by Dunaway and Patrick. Are there any comments or discussion?
How many candidates did you interview?
We interviewed 5 candidates out of 8 applicants.
And this was our second round, because we did it a few months ago.
Second and a half.
Right.
Yeah, 2.5.
So we've been down this road for 4 months now.
Yeah, and I appreciated the diversity of the group that came forward. And I appreciated the tough decision that Dave and I had at the end with our two finalists. So it was a good process all the way around.
And the position is effective when? I'm sorry, I know I read that somewhere.
November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Okay.
I would just want to say, she's not here, but congratulations to Mrs. Hagan. You know, I read the resume and she brings a lot of things to this job position that people might not know about. I mean, that was a pretty big resume. I kept reading it, finding more and more. It's like, wow, how have I known this person for 5 years? And I'm discovering all this. A resume is a very interesting document.
EMT and an ambulance driver, I mean, it's like.
Yeah,
she's a jack of all
Speedway, Michigan
Michigan Motor Speedway.
Michigan Motor Speedway. I was super impressed. You know, all the work, anyway, so, congratulations. You're not here, but great job.
And she's been an employee for a long time. It's just neat to
Long
have
time.
one of
Yes.
our own rise up.
She
And
started as an aide too, which I never even
It's
knew.
really great.
So,
so, yeah, congratulations. to
Well,
her.
that was
She's
the
gonna-
part in my business review. I like the fact that that you're recognizing the school of hard knocks and what that body of knowledge brings
amen.
to skill sets such as whether it's the technology or this position. And I've seen it be successful over and over again. So sometimes the sheepskin isn't always the determinant factor in how well somebody's going to perform on their duties.
Yeah, I think she's gonna be great.
Will the supervisory aspects be for maintenance
And food
and food
service.
service,
Correct.
limited just to those groups?
For now.
Yeah.
And as additional training and or certifications come, then we may expand the responsibilities.
And then do you have the intent to backfill the position she'll vacate?
That's the next thing that
That's gonna
happens.
be
after-
hard.
That's the next thing that happens after you act on this item.
That's gonna be hard.
Yep.
And people are in any type of position for that long, you can't put what they do on a piece of paper, as you well know. And that's,
But it's good that she's still here.
yeah, I'm just saying,
She
absolutely.
gets to mentor the new person, so that's
Yeah,
the perfect
great.
mentor system.
She gets to mentor the new person and learn her new job. So the double duty continues for at least a while.
Yes.
Any other comments?
No, sorry,
No, quite all right.
we're excited.
We ready for a vote?
I think we're ready for a vote.
I believe that was Dunaway,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes,
Heatherly,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
We already did citizen comments with Mr. Watson.
We do have two additional, Simon had asked that we move the
Oh,
board
I'm so sorry.
minutes
My
out.
computer is still stuck on the ABC. I need to refresh.
So I haven't moved those. They're currently, we're gonna have to go
Gotcha.
back and address, I will move them later. So I believe that takes us to the approval of meeting minutes from September 28th, 2020.
Yes.
I'll move.
I'll second. Oh, no, I can't second. Never mind. I didn't go to that meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Heatherly and Zakor.
Yes.
Any comments?
Yeah, the reason I asked to have these moved is that I don't believe that they meet the requisite specificity to satisfy the statute. I think when it comes to minutes, it has to be in sufficient detail to permit and appreciate the rationale behind the board's decisions. That, I believe, has been interpreted to mean that it's basically almost verbatim.
I believe that is the incorrect interpretation. I've been told that it's not supposed to be word for word verbatim. It's supposed to just provide an idea of what was discussed. And my board minutes have been too detailed from what I have been told from others.
From who are these others?
One was the clerk of courts for the city of Tipp City. And she specifically stated that word for word is not supposed to be done, nor sentences that include most information. This was a lighter attempt to try to bring back the work that's needed to do these board minutes.
So I'm looking at the Ohio School Law Guide that's published by LexisNexis, which cites White v. Clinton County Board of Commissioners, as well as which is a Supreme Court decision. Next is the Long v. Council of Village Cardington. In citing those two decisions, it states something that in reading the decision on the subject, the Ohio Supreme Court has indicated or videotape recordings, word for word transcripts, or narrative summaries indicating the idea of speakers and the order of substance of their statements are all appropriate methods. And so in these minutes, we're not talking about the subject matter other than just the overriding, I guess, topic overview. It's not identifying the narrative summaries. And so the alternative that we could do that would help with the time is to change our policy to provide that our minutes are kept through video recordings versus the typed. Now that would remove your need to type anything. And so I'm okay with thinking about that, but right now our current policies requires written minutes and they have to be narrative summaries. And so I'm not saying it has to be word for word, but almost verbatim is not verbatim. It just means it's got to be detailed enough that it's nearly verbatim.
I will state that I've also been told that having your board meetings recorded and use those as the recording items is not the best of ideas because the media that might be able to play those items may change in the future. So the items, a CD right now that could have a board meeting recorded to it may not be on a device 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Well, and that's obviously a real concern. And then that I understand and respect that. But then if we're going to be drafting and typing them, they have to be, in my opinion, compliant with the law. And I don't believe that these comply with the statutory requirements.
I think they go above and beyond.
So, Simon, do you want to reach out to possibly an OSPA attorney or what's, you know what I'm saying? What type of solution or suggestion would you want to
I
add
don't,
at this point?
OSPA can't give legal advice. And so they're just going to hand me what I've
Okay, I wasn't trying to be.
No, I know.
Okay, I mean, because.
I'm just giving you my response.
Yeah, I
I'm
get
giving
it.
you my logic behind it.
Yeah.
So because they can't give us legal advice that's not useful to defend us if we need to, I would suggest that we ask our legal counsel for an opinion or that we just go back to what we were doing until a few months ago and we're providing descriptive narrative summaries.
Well, a descriptive narrative summary takes 8 hours to do 1 4-hour board meeting.
Oh, yeah, it's taken a long time.
Yes, it does.
So is everybody okay with, I guess, what Simon is suggesting, Dave? You would send these, use one of these as an example to Helen to see if she thinks it's compliant. Simon, do you mind sending that specific, whatever policy or code or whatever you found to Dave? So that he has that when he discusses this with Simon?
I believe
Discusses-
that Helen already knows this policy.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm sorry, I just didn't know if he,
I mean, I would be
Exactly what
glad
you
to,
read.
yeah, if the board will authorize me, I would be glad to send Helen an email with these two work session, the minutes from the work session, as well as the one from September 28th with my question and copying the rest of the board on it. And then we'll get an opinion that we can discuss at the next board meeting. I'm glad to do that.
I would prefer Mr. Stevens do that.
Yeah,
Since
or-
this is his domain, he's the one who's gonna have to work with this. And he may have questions that you and I would not think about because we're not the secretary, we're not doing this work.
Simon, I'm comfortable with it being you and Dave because the 5 of us can't engage, you know what I'm saying?
Simon can email her, that's fine.
Well, I mean, it's your job, it's your duty, so
Well-
the two, it makes, to me, it makes the most sense that Simon had the concern, he brought it forward. It's concerning, your job, your duties, the fact that you scaled it back because we told you it was taking too much time and that you're doing almost too good of a job. So I'm comfortable with you two and Helen working this out. I have no problem with that. Does anybody else?
Wait, I do have a problem.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Because, did I hear you correctly, Mr. Stevens? You said you already spoke to Helen about this formatting? Or
no.
you did not?
I have spoken
Good
with
reports.
many people, just indicating what I have done in the past for minutes. And then, some treasurers told me they don't put anything in the discussion. There's no discussion. It's just the items that were discussed and that's
Okay,
it.
so I misunderstood. You did not speak to Helen directly about this
No.
format? Okay,
No.
I'm sorry.
So I wonder if a remedy might be, to go back what Simon said, which is, could we investigate language that would then revise our policy so that it is compliant?
So it's either, I think we need an opinion first as to whether the current format is legally satisfying the requirement. I think that with all due respect to all the other treasurers that they've spoke with, you don't know what you don't know, and they may be doing it illegally. And you don't, the only reason that this is on my radar is in reading all the other items I've been reading recently. This popped up as one of the reasons that people on the board were getting removed, or one of the discussion items. And so because we're tasked with enforcing this, we are fiduciarily responsible for ensuring that we're complying with the minutes as required by the law. So I was like, well, that's something now that's on my radar. And so it's on my radar, and I feel that based on what I've read, that we need to have, I'm not saying word for word, but very, very close in that substantive narrative summaries, not just little line items that address, a 30-40-minute conversation in one sentence. That's going to be insufficient in my opinion. So I'm glad, I think we need to get an opinion from our legal counsel or go back to what we were doing. Or I think that the alternative as well is to use video recordings and change our policy to allow that to satisfy our minutes. But I think that Mr. Stevens' concern related to format changing over the years is obviously a meaningful one.
Yep.
But so I'll let the board, that's kind of my feelings of what I bring forward. I'll let the board decide how they want to approach it.
Well, I already gave my opinion,
I'd
so.
like to see the meeting minutes in print in addition to any videos. I do like a print copy versus just a video where you have to. I mean, how can you do that? You don't even know, you gotta like move the little slider to see where you are in the meeting, and then, I definitely am supportive of having written minutes in addition for.
I would agree. I don't think they need to be verbatim, but they are down to just bullet statements now, and it doesn't really lend much sufficient insight to what the discussion contained. So I would recommend that you try to expand the format somewhat. While I'm okay with Simon contacting legal counsel for an opinion and hopefully some language of how we might revise the policy moving forward that satisfies both needs.
Yeah, I don't want Dave spending, 8 hours per meeting, and then we all complain because the meetings were 3 and 4 minutes, 3 and 4 months behind because it was so laborious for Mr. Stevens.
Well, I will just state that the eye rolls that I have been accused of doing in the past were not because of what board members were saying. It was because the conversation was still going on and I knew what was ahead of me for preparing the minutes.
Oh, sure.
That's what the eye rolls were for.
Okay.
So
Well, eye rolls are eye rolls.
Mrs. Dowd, do you have any input on how we move forward?
I think we have to consult for an opinion.
So I think what we're down now to is it, Ann, you're the one that had the concern. Is it Mr. Patrick and Mr. Stevens on the email, or do you?
No, I misunderstood
Oh, it's okay,
Mr.
okay.
Stevens. I thought he had already consulted.
So are you okay with just Simon and Dave being on that email?
Yes,
Okay,
she hasn't been contacted previously.
great. So
I would just copy everybody, so we're just all in the chain. It makes sense to me.
all the time.
yeah, do not reply information only. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
All
I
right.
mean, shoot, I can tag this in our meeting on board docs and she can watch this conversation.
Perfect. There you go.
And I'll email her because I just want to provide her the context of what I'm looking at here.
Sounds great.
Okay, Dave, for,
May I, so I would
Yep, go
move
ahead,
then,
yep.
I would move for authority to email and engage Helen Carroll to review these 2 sets of minutes and ask her whether it satisfies the legal requirement related to the descriptive nature of the minutes.
Sounds great to me.
would you also like to put in that motion that you'll then table these 2 items?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's a good idea, Mr.
Yeah,
Stefani.
And
Thank you
then,
for that.
and further move.
Because I was worried about how I was gonna vote. I'm thinking I can't vote because now we're have this discrepancy, and so great idea.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Mr. Stefani.
All right.
I just knew we had an open motion out
There
there.
you go. That's right. So, that clears up new business. We already addressed.
So wait,
There's a
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry. Oh,
His motion.
sorry.
His motion, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead. Motion and second, Mr. Patrick and Mrs. Heatherly. And there shouldn't be any more comments at this point.
We did a discussion.
Okay, so we're ready to vote.
You guys are 3 steps ahead.
Oh,
of me
no,
right
take your
now.
time. It's a motion for,
Oh, I got it. I've just got to now add it.
don't feel rushed.
We're just sitting here rolling our eyes.
Oh, my gosh.
was the first on that?
Mr. Patry and Mrs. Heatherly.
Okay. Take the vote. Mr. Patry,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway.
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Go ahead, Mr.
I was gonna say, the next one is citizen comments, take two.
Yeah,
And
already done.
we don't have anybody else on the list, and I don't see anybody else in the lobby. And so we can move on to miscellaneous upcoming meetings.
So,
We've got
Back and forth.
the virtual capital conference coming up here, November 7th through the 10th. And then the next regular board meeting will take place at 6 p.m. on Monday, November 16th, with the suggestion of a 5 o'clock work session to precede that regular board meeting on the 16th.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, may I ask a
Oh.
question first on the Capitol Conference?
Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna ask one too. Go ahead.
Okay, we are registered, Mr. Stevens, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so at this point, because this is new from my first experience last year, we can just jump in and jump on as, is that how it's gonna work? And-
Yeah, I am waiting. I think I did see an email the other day. I will go ahead and check my email to find the instructions. It's just stating that we can go to their website and find the information.
Do they do the app like they do every year? That would be awesome.
I have no idea how it's going
Okay,
to work
that
this
would be the
year.
best way.
Your best reference is to log into OSBA's website and click on the conference. And it's its own tab.
Yeah.
I've received 2 emails. Has anybody else received emails?
No, I'm the delegate, so I haven't.
Everybody should have received an email because I've signed everyone up with that.
Yes,
I got an email saying we're registered.
But I didn't get anything in
Yes,
the mail. I was
the
supposed to get a
registered
couple
one,
of
and then
them.
you can actually look at the
You can look at the agenda.
the
of the
agenda, and
topics.
then the second email that came said as we got closer to the conference dates, they'll send you the access code for the link.
Okay,
That's the second one I received about, what's the day, Monday, probably Wednesday or Thursday of last week. I received that one.
I didn't get that one, but thank you. That's all the explanation I need. Anything else on that?
And do you know how they're gonna do, like, usually you sign it and see, does that help with your certificates, or are
Yes,
they gonna monitor that?
everything, you'll have to fill out your, once the class is complete, I'm sure you'll be required to fill out a survey on that.
Okay.
And
That's how you get credit.
that's how you'll keep
Okay.
track of the credit.
Yeah, I just did a legal update with Peppel and Wagner, and that's what they did. You'll fill out an evaluation after each session, and then they use the evaluation to give you credit for time spent in the training. So I assume with this big of a conference, that's exactly what they'll do, is the electronic evaluations.
Any other comments on upcoming meetings? Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
Second.
Mrs. Dow and Mr. Patry. Mr. Stevens?
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
at 9:02 PM.
I'm gonna beat you to the ladies' room. Are you gonna, I don't wanna knock you down.
No, I'm
Okay.
actually gonna just go back there and leave the computer here now. I don't need to take it home with me anymore.
Thank you for that presentation.
Oh, thank you. I wish you guys could get the whole one, and I did, if you guys want the book, I did ask Dave to get us a copy, so